There is an exit.
Yeah, you can see it.
There is an exit in that direction and another exit in that direction. I'd like you to join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, I've got a public hearing on a 1-year extension of outdoor dining.
Peter, were you going to read the rules and everything that I?
After that.
Okay.
I should do it before. All right, I'll do it before. Now you know why I didn't. Okay. There are the following rules I'd like to follow. Board members only answer questions and comments from the audience during the polling of the board. I plan to enforce silence by residents except by public hearings and public comment periods. If someone in the audience breaks this rule, if the individual does not heed the chair, I will ask a police officer to escort that individual from the room. Please do not go to Zoom while you are in this room, as it destroys our capabilities of recording the meeting. Please do not yield your time to anyone else. If you would like to speak during the public comment period, please sign in on the sheet in the back of the room. I'd like to open a public hearing regarding a 1-year extension of existing outdoor dining rules. Does anybody wish to speak? Discussion?
Anybody on Zoom? Anyone on Zoom by any chance?
There are no hands up, Peter.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was to close the public hearing. I would now like to put that into law and propose that we adopt the law allowing us to a 1-year extension for outdoor dining in town.
I'm trying to remember, there's been a time like planning board chimed in on this, right? They were basically all right.
I can't remember if they timed in on this or the last one. All right, this is an extension.
Yes,
Extension of the last
It's
one.
not a new thing.
we had the first one through December 31.
Yes, and this one takes us a year past December 31.
You sent a letter, Peter, if you
Mhm.
want to, but I need that back.
It's the planning board letter.
Yes, this is the planning board letter. And
Dated.
September 22nd. Do I have a second to adopt this?
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
I have got a couple of communications I'd like to bring up to the board. The first, I've tried to write amusingly, but it's deadly serious. We have a target painted on our backs. Worse still, we've painted that target ourselves. It is clear that we have become known for easy pickings for car thieves. Far too many of us are parking our cars in our driveways with the keys in the ignition, or at least obviously visible. Worse still, we often leave our purses or wallets in the parked cars. Please stop doing this. If we really want to donate our cars and money, there are many deserving charities we can support. That is signed by Dave Alfano and myself. I have one other here. Lewisboro now has a lower number of COVID cases than any of its neighbors when measured as a percentage of its population, less than 0.5%. Our vaccination percentages by postal area are now South Salem, 79%, Golden's Bridge, 88%, Walkerbuck, 97%, and Cross River, 99%. That is close enough to the target of 80% in each zip code to declare victory in the vaccination war, so that the mask requirement is now finally lifted. That said, we still urge any who have not been fully vaccinated to do it. And of course, anyone who feels safer asking others to wear a mask may do so. We must respect that request.
And during the time of the mask mandate, the cases from the peak have gone down. I think it's about 80%. They've reduced during that time
Yeah.
period.
Well, are you suggesting I should go on doing it?
No, I'm saying it was
Okay.
a success.
There are two indicated actions from success. Keep on doing it, or conceivably you've achieved your objective. I decided to go with the you've
B.
achieved your objective. Next, Lori Leddy has long been the chair of our ADA committee and has been a particularly excellent one. She has sent me a letter of resignation, which I'm somewhat sad about. But basically it says she's moving shortly to Hartford and therefore is no longer eligible to chair that committee, actually to Simsbury, Connecticut, to work in Hartford. She makes a recommendation for a replacement, which I will talk about in executive session, and offers to help transition to the new chair. Chris, why don't you take the stage? You can get them.
You should have come over here.
Yes.
And it's this slide. Good, thank you. I first want to thank you folks for giving me the opportunity to provide an update on what's going on at the state level. But I think I should start with congratulating the community here in Lewisboro for what they've achieved in terms of defeating the virus and your terrific numbers on vaccination rates. And it shows a tremendous community spirit and willingness to come together to do everything you can to defeat the virus. And you certainly deserve great commendation. I should also mention, we were talking in the office about booster shots. And I'm sure that you have heard that the CDC has moved ahead with the mix and match, as well as allowing for certain demographic groups to receive the booster shot. And interestingly, right across the hall from my district office, which is in Mount Kisco, where the Caremount facilities are, Caremount has got a clinic that's open to anyone, not just Caremount patients, and it can be on a walk-in basis for getting the booster shot. And that would be people over 65 and those that are immunocompromised. They presently have the Moderna there, and they have the Pfizer, and they expect that they'll get J&J shortly. But again, as you may know, it's mix and match, so you could use one of those two if you started with J&J. But I thought I would mention that since you folks have done such a great job. I wanted to just let you know about the work that I've been doing, but more importantly, the work that the state has been doing and its impact on Lewisboro as well as other municipalities in my assembly district, which, as some of you may know, covers some 9 municipalities, goes all the way up to the Putnam line, includes North Salem, Pound Ridge, Lewisboro, Bedford, goes over to North Castle, Newcastle, Harrison, Mount Kisco, and the eastern half of White Plains, some 135,000 in the district. And it's really my honor to be able to represent that district and to be able to come back here to represent the town of Lewisboro and let you know some developments that are on a statewide basis, but also have, I think, some very positive impacts for the town of Bedford, town of Lewisboro, excuse me. Obviously, the single most important challenge when I first came into the assembly in January has been the continuing battle with the pandemic. And it's certainly the Delta variant was of great concern coming in. And as we all know, complicated and extended the crisis. And we all continue to work assiduously to make sure that there isn't another surge the way there had been. And so I think we're doing very well. I think the state is doing well. I think the governor, our new governor, has been doing well in terms of the actions that she has taken. But of course, we know that that threw millions out of work and created a pretty severe pandemic-induced recession. And so a lot of what we were doing at the beginning of the year was on two fronts. One was dealing with the pandemic itself and trying to make the community as safe as possible, while also dealing with the pandemic-induced recession. And it's very interesting that when I first came in, colleagues of mine who'd been in the assembly for a good long time were saying, Chris, you know, in the over 20 years that I've been in the assembly, I think this is going to be the very worst budget that we have seen. And the reason for that was because revenues had plummeted and we were not expecting anything from the federal government other than what had already been provided in the previous year. And the state budget was looking pretty bleak. But then a couple things transformed that substantially and really put us in a completely different position. One was that there was our own US Senator Chuck Schumer became the majority leader of the Senate. And together with that, they were able to adopt a very large, as you know, pandemic relief package. And that resulted in a substantial amount of money to all levels of government, not to mention the help that it provided to individuals. And so that changed the situation dramatically. The second thing that changed it is that the revenue projections were coming in better than we thought as they were being adjusted. And the economists, both for the governor's office as well as for the legislature, were saying, you know, we're in a better position than we thought, to the tune of about $3 billion. And so between the 12, 13 billion that we were getting from the federal government and the increased revenue projections, it turned completely around so that instead of it being the worst budget in 20 years, it was one of the best budgets in 20 years. And it was a fiscally sound budget as well. It was one that is sustainable so that in future years, we're not going to say, how do we meet this huge budget gap that had been so frequently the situation in Albany. And so it's a sustainable budget, not only for this fiscal year, but going forward. And so what that meant was that we were able to tell the executive, the governor and those working with him as agencies that, you know, we really need to reverse some of the drastic cuts that had been proposed in the governor's budget. And so it provided the final budget, which was agreed to, and we did not have a long drag out fight with the governor on this, fortunately. And it resulted in 96 billion for healthcare services, including 542 million to restore cuts to the Medicaid program and 58.25 million in public health programs. And one area that I think is especially important for us here in Westchester is it is the biggest commitment to public education in many years, with 29.1 billion in funding for general support for public schools, an increase of 3.1 billion or 12%, pretty big hike over the 2020 to 21 school year. So what that means is for the Katona-Lewisboro School District, it provides an over $200,000 increase in state aid to the district to a total of over $4.2 million. And obviously, when those funds come in to the Katona-Lewisboro School District, it helps to moderate the tax impact for our property taxpayers. Probably the most important thing, though, in public education is that we made a commitment to fully fund what's called foundation aid, which is the basic aid that's the state provides to the public school districts, and to do so within 3 budget cycles. And so this was a major, major change from years previously. 1.84 billion in funding was provided for the environment, including 300 million for the New York State Environmental Protection Fund. And also we put on next year's ballot a $3 billion Restore Mother Nature Environmental Bond Act. And that's especially important to Lewisboro and other northern Westchester communities. And especially because that will provide for funds for sewer projects and for flood mitigation and other infrastructure that we need. The budget also includes 500 million to support New York State's clean water infrastructure and bringing that total grant, the grant funds to nearly 1 billion. So there's a lot there, and it's something that is, I think all of you know, I'm anxious to work with the municipalities that are in the New York City watershed and or otherwise need help with their sewer projects. And so they are so frightfully expensive and simply cannot be borne by the property taxpayers alone within each municipality. There was a major increase in childcare with 2.4 billion allocated to childcare. And I think that also what's so important to local government, as I think you up there will greatly appreciate, is the money that the Department of Transportation provides for roads. And I think you know how that had been like a yo-yo over the years. And those putting together the town budgets are always wondering, what are we going to get from the state? Are they going to cut back CHIPS funding? What are they going to do? And together with my colleagues in the Westchester delegation, as well as others in the assembly, we worked very hard to get restore funding for local roads. And I just got the figures from the regional office of the New York State Department of Transportation. You might have them, but in case you didn't, I wanted to share them with you. For the CHIPS funding, there's an apportionment of $192,486.05. Plus there's a rollover balance of a little over 7,000. So there's a total of $200,020.02. And I'm happy to email all of this to you.
I'd like that if you.
Be happy to do that. There's also
Now, are
the,
those figures for,
pardon?
are those figures for your district, for
No,
Westchester?
this is
or
for Lewisboro. This is Lewisboro.
Okay,
Yeah, I specifically said, I'm going to be talking to the folks in Lewisboro tonight. I want to make sure that I have the most up-to-date
okay,
figures.
thanks.
Appreciate it.
Then something that's called the winter recovery apportionment. And that is an apportionment of $41,816.61 plus a rollover balance of a little over 1,000 for a total of $43,175.65. Then the Pave New York program, and the apportionment is $51,587.70 plus a rollover balance of $1,719.70 for a total of $53,307.40. And I think that, you know, I'm very sensitive to these things, having been supervisor at the town of Bedford for 7 years and knowing how important it is to get these funds. Because otherwise, you know that the alternative is either you ignore your roads or you have a tax increase that's going to cover the costs that this otherwise would provide. So I was very pleased with what we were able to accomplish. There's also, and a lot of this, by the way, has been accessed, what I'm going to describe now, because one of the things that we did is we said to the agencies, it is extremely important that you get the money out the door to the businesses and the individuals, the companies and tenants and so forth that need it, because that's the whole point of it. These are pandemic relief funds. Most of the money having come from Washington, and these are one-time funds, so that we're not looking to put out programs that just are depending upon future dollars from the state that wouldn't be there. These are one-time allocations. And there's a $1 billion relief package for small businesses, the arts, entertainment, and restaurants to help them recover. And it includes $865 million in grants and $139 million in tax credits. One of the things that we also fought for is the continuation of the phase-in of the middle class tax cut. I'm talking, of course, about state taxes. And the budget that was proposed by the governor was going to suspend that program. And here again, the legislature pushed back on that and was successful in keeping that in place. And that's expected to save 4.8 million New Yorkers over 2.2 billion this year alone. And it's going to be some of the lowest rates in years and years. And it goes up to about $350,000 of income. 2.4 billion in an emergency rental assistance program, as well as help for homeowners and small landlords. 2.1 billion for what is called the Excluded Workers Fund. And I'm very proud that New York is the first in the nation to provide a very robust pandemic relief program for essential workers who did not have access to unemployment benefits. So many of these are undocumented immigrants who have worked hard and lost work during the course of the pandemic-induced recession. And, you know, one of the things I should mention about this is that these dollars are going right back into the economy. They're going right back to help bring back businesses, since those dollars are going to be used immediately for essentials for those essential workers who lost income during the recession. This fund is, again, a one-time relief, and for any individual that had suffered a verifiable loss of work-related earnings or household income due to COVID-19 and is ineligible for unemployment benefits or other federal stimulus payments, so that there could not be any double dipping. I was very pleased that the budget included a number of items that I requested for the benefit not only of Lewisboro, but the district and the county. It includes a $300,000 line item, which State Senator Pete Harcum and I were able to put into the budget for the East of Hudson Watershed Corporation to identify the most severe wastewater problems in the 18 municipal members of the corporation, which should help Lewisboro as it goes forward with addressing wastewater issues. $380,000 in funding for the legal services of the Hudson Valley, including for the first time funds to extend support services to veterans into Westchester and Putnam counties. Also, another line item, which I worked hard with my colleagues in the Westchester County delegation, and that's a $1 million budget line item for Arts Westchester. And so I was very pleased with that. I think that you probably have heard a number of some of the major legislation that have been signed into law, including the passage of the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act with a local opt-out provision. I had co-sponsored that measure, and one of the things that I insisted on, and as did others, wasn't me alone, was that there be that opt-out provision so that municipalities would have control over the process. In the September 1st extraordinary legislative session, which Governor Hochul had called, and this is switching topics, and that was to extend the eviction foreclosure moratorium, but also, very importantly, it was to amend the open meetings law to continue to allow virtual meetings for public bodies. And I should mention that the Government Operations Committee of the State Assembly did have a public hearing today. Due to a conflict, I was unable to attend that. But one of the things that they're going to look to is to see how those measures can be extended beyond the January 15 expiration date, because that was a short-term extension to allow for opportunities for public comment and involvement in what we can do after learning from the pandemic and being able to operate in the virtual methods in which the public can participate, in which public bodies can hold their meetings. Very proud of passage of legislation to protect both patients and staff alike, including requirements for minimum nursing staff in hospitals, nursing homes, and other congregate care facilities. Obviously, that was something that was learned from the tragic deaths in nursing homes and congregate care facilities during the course of the height of the pandemic. I'm also pleased about the passage of parole reform legislation, including what's called the Less is More bill, which the governor had signed, Governor Hochul, and that restricts the use of parolee incarceration for non-criminal technical parole violations, as well as what's called the Halt Solitary Confinement Act, which restricts the use of solitary confinement in state prisons. I had co-sponsored both measures. I think that these are humane measures. In terms of the Halt Solitary Confinement Act, the state of New York was actually violating provisions, international provisions as to what constituted cruel punishment. And one actually has to wonder whether or not, had it gone all the way up to the Supreme Court, what the practice would have been set aside. And this does not completely eliminate the use of solitary confinement. It is to eliminate the excessive use of solitary confinement. We also enacted legislation expanding early voting to make and as well as legislation to facilitate the process for tabulating absentee ballots. Most importantly, I think in a lot of the election reforms is that we provided more funds to county boards of election. Because as you know, too often we get from our government unfunded mandates in which we provide certain requirements to whoever is charged with carrying it out, but without the funding that is needed for the staffing and computer software and everything else that would be entailed. So that was something in which I joined colleagues, number of my colleagues in the Hudson Valley who pushed hard for that. I'm also pleased with the passage of the Gender Recognition Act, which would ensure that government documents reflect transgender, non-binary, and intersex individuals' identities. The provisions of this act make it easier and safer for individuals to petition for a change in name or sex designation. I'm also pleased in that regard that it included a provision I sponsored at the request of Kristen Browdy, a Westchester-based attorney and co-chair of the National Trans Bar Association. And what that provides is transgender New Yorkers born out of state a means for obtaining a corrected birth certificate. This legislation was needed as certain states will not correct the gender or name on a birth certificate without a difficult and invasive process, but will recognize the New York court order correcting the gender in name. Finally, in addition to legislation, my office works very hard to provide service to residents, to municipalities, and to whoever we may be serving in a wide area. And some examples, including earlier in the year, helping to get appointments for COVID-19 vaccinations, when getting those appointments was so very difficult. Dealing with the Department of Labor on unemployment claims, including those that are fraudulent claims, where people were engaging in identity theft, and assisting constituents in securing FEMA and other aid in the wake of Hurricane Ida. I also am pleased that I was able to secure funding for a number of community-based organizations throughout my district, including nearby the Community Center of Northern Westchester, a $30,000 grant, and Friends of Karen in North Salem, a $20,000 grant. And also, as I think you know, I was very pleased with helping secure a $400,000 grant for the town of Lewisboro for its park to provide a total remake of the some 30-year-old playground equipment so that it will be accessible to those with disabilities. So I am pleased with what we've been able to accomplish, what looked to be a pretty bleak year at the beginning. And obviously it took a lot of twists and turns and very unexpected developments. Little did I know that we're going to have a new governor at this point. People have asked me, and I think she's doing a good job. I think she takes the needs of all areas of the state very seriously. She's responsive. She listens to people. There's actually a feeling that you have a partnership and that you have collaboration in a way that we hadn't had with the executive branch. So with that, I am more than happy to field any questions that you or anyone in the audience may have.
I don't have any questions.
That
Okay,
was,
I was
that
just
was an
wondering if
amazing set of accomplishments there. And you are everywhere and are working with everyone. And except that, thank you. And you know, your focus on the priorities are right on. So.
Well, I thank you for that, Dan. It's really my honor to be doing this. It's work that I love doing, and particularly if I can act in a way that reflects what I believe are the values of those who reside in the district, and do everything I can as well as to bring money back to the district, to help with the infrastructure problems, and to do everything I can to help our municipalities, our school districts, our libraries, and any way that I can help. By the way, I should mention that talking about libraries, one of the things I didn't mention is that we increased the library construction fund to some $34 million, which is a substantial increase from what it had been in the previous year. And I am going to be pressing for further increases in the library construction fund, because there still are millions, if not billions, statewide in unmet needs for our libraries. Did you have a question for me?
Would any of that funding cover IT infrastructure? Because libraries.
Well, you know, that's a great question. One of the things that I've been asked about recently is, you know, what funding would be available. And one of the things that I do anticipate, and it has not been completely rolled out yet, is that some $15 million was provided for broadband access. And I anticipate that libraries, if they can show that they are serving, that through that they would be serving underserved populations, they would have access to some of those funds. That the program has not been fully formed yet. I spoke with Steve Otis, who's the chair of the Science and Technology Committee and is another legislator here in Westchester County who was really single-handedly responsible for getting those funds into the state budget. But as soon as I do hear about when that's been set in place and once grant applications, the window for that opens, I certainly will be notifying the 14 libraries that I have in my district, which is the most of any assembly district in Westchester County. And I have to tell you, they do a great job. One of the things I did in the time following session, because the state legislature meets from the beginning of January to about the first week of June, is I went to every one of the 14 libraries in my district. And it's really impressive what they do and provide such a tremendous service to the residents, regardless of income, regardless of background, and especially helpful during a time of recession and in time of, as we know, in times of crisis. But your town attorney, I think, had a
I do
question
have a
for me.
question, if you don't mind. Do you anticipate a further extension of the moratorium on foreclosures and evictions past the January date?
I do not anticipate that. The last extension went through August 31,
Mhm.
and I don't see that occurring. In order for that to occur, the governor would have to call a special session of the legislature to have that extended further, but I do not anticipate any further extension.
Thank you.
One of the sad things about unintentional things.
I'm sorry?
One of the unintentional but sad things about that moratorium is we have homes in town which are decaying by the day and getting less and less valuable, so that eventually, when we do get to foreclose on them, there won't be that much left. I don't know about Bedford, but we've got several of those, and they tend to be the better foreclosure properties. That's kind of sad.
No, you're absolutely right. It is sad. And, it was not an easy situation where you knew that there still continued to be people who would be out on the street if we hadn't done the
Yes,
extension.
that I understand.
But that weighed against problems in which, you have, the zombie houses. and we
Yeah,
have
these
them in
houses that I'm
Bedford and
talking
in
about
every
are
town.
empty.
Yeah, it's in every municipality. And that's a real problem where, I know in Bedford, one of the things that we try to do is see whether there's some way in which an agreement can be made with the lender, maybe sell the mortgage to a not-for-profit affordable housing corporation. And I hope that we may make some progress in that in the coming years. I'm on the housing committee of the state assembly, and it's one of the areas that I really want to see us get some progress on.
Rich?
Yes, just want to thank you, Assemblyman, for your incredible hard work. I was just actually looking, it's unbelievable. You've only been on the job for this year. And it's just an incredible accomplishment. You hit the ground running in this position, and we just greatly appreciate all you've done for our community, how responsive you are, how you're always there and available to us. The incredible $400,000 towards the playground in town. We appreciate all you've done on behalf of our community, and I know there'll be great things to come in the future.
Well, thank you for your kind words. That $400,000 grant, I just want to say it would not have been possible had it not been for the community. Had it not been for the playground committee that just did such an incredible job of getting the communities pulling it. I mean, when I heard the hundreds of people who had come out to support it financially and otherwise, 1,200 people, I think, that were at the recent, the Oktoberfest. The outpouring of community spirit was just astounding. And I remember so well talking to the folks in the playground committee where I said, tell you what, let's try to do this all at once rather than in phases. And if you can get up to $100,000, then I would do my utmost to get you a lot more money. And so they met their end of the bargain of the challenge. And it was on me to get the rest of it, which I was really thrilled that I was able to secure as much in grant funding as I was able to.
Mr. Supervisor, I think we have some questions from Zoom that people are calling in to the Assemblyman.
We do?
There's
Yeah,
three
we do.
people.
Well,
with
let's
their
have
hands up.
Tony go first and then I'll go to Sue.
Yeah, no, I'd like to echo Rich's remarks. Your accessibility has been incredible. I mean, we've been on the phone many times. You've been very supportive of the town of Lewisboro, and I look forward to continuing working closely with you, Chris.
Happy to do it.
Can I just say one thing before we take Zoom comments? We did have some feedback and I've heard it from several of our committee chairs, including our own, that the option to have meetings on Zoom is something that we find really engages our public in a way that we appreciate. And so if it can be an option going forward, I think a lot of us in town, a lot of the boards and committees would appreciate it. So just asking for your consideration on that.
Well, I completely agree with that, Jane. And I can tell you that that is a sentiment that I've heard from other municipalities in my district and which I communicated to the chair of the Government Operations Committee. And, I think that they are working towards that. And there are other areas that they have to look at too. For example, remote notarization and how do you handle that? How can it be done? And corporations that want to hold their meetings remotely. And so it is complex. And so they needed the time to do the temporary extension through the middle of January. And I'm optimistic that they're going to come up with a good package of legislation.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you say that there were
I
some?
have 3 people on Zoom, so if you
Sure.
don't mind, I think they have questions. I'll ask Jody Shearer to unmute. Jody, I'm asking you to unmute. There you go.
Hi, I did not mean to raise my hand. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Hi, Jody.
Well, if you have a question later, you can contact me anytime.
Okay,
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, Robin Leganzowski, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, as I've said to you many times, you did a great job for the town of Bedford, and it was really obvious, when you were there compared to what was going on in our town. It's nice that you're reaching out to us in your new position and helping us, get some funds and grants and stuff. And I was just wondering if there's some sort of like mentor program from your office that you can work with our town board to, help them, work in a way that you did for the town of Bedford, because it was, it was outstanding. So I just want to thank you again, and hopefully you can, I don't know, help our town a little bit more, get organized. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And obviously, you're going to have a new supervisor come January 1. And whoever that supervisor is, I am more than happy to sit down with them and share with them whatever experience and what I've learned over the 7 years that I was supervisor, and before that, 6 years on the town board. And so, after a while, you kind of get to know the job. And so I'm happy to do that. Though I do have to say that I think that your present town board and your present supervisor, my view, is that they've been doing a very good job.
And I
Thank you,
have
Chris.
one more. Alia Machetta, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, Elio Machetta, South Salem. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can hear you fine.
I just want to thank Mr. Burdick for coming out tonight and answering questions. My question relates to the school resource officer at John Jay High School. We have been without one since last June. And apparently the school district can't find the funds in the budget to replace the school resource officer we've been without. Is there any way you can help our town bring back our school resource officer, as surrounding towns have one and we do not at this time?
You know, it's a great question. And I can't be optimistic only because the problem is that the state runs on a different budget cycle. And the funds that have been made available are through a budget that was adopted earlier this year. And allocations that are available have been expended. And the funds that the school districts have been allocated, which I mentioned earlier, those are not going to change in this fiscal year of the state. In addition, the money that came from the pandemic relief fund from the federal government also is set in place. I'm not aware of any further federal money that would be coming to public education, but that may be a possibility, but I have to say that I'm not aware of that being available, at least at this point. What you probably know is being discussed in Washington is an infrastructure bill. And there's another bill called Build Back Better that there's a lot of controversy over, as I'm sure you know. But I want to be candid with you that I'm not aware of any other funding stream. I had not heard from the Katona Lewisboro School District about this. I am happy to talk to the superintendent, and notwithstanding what I said about being pessimistic, I certainly will look into it.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for the work you've been doing for the last year. We have benefited hugely from your energy and the sheer enthusiasm you have brought to this job.
Well, thank
Thanks.
you. And I have to say, can I share this little story? That it was your supervisor who said, "Are you sure you want to do this? You know, you're having such a good time and you seem to be getting things done in Bedford." And I said, you know, I got to give this a shot. And so, yes, there was a risk involved, but I'm also really, really fortunate about what tremendous communities I represent. I could not do this without the spirit in every one of the communities that I represent. Such good people, people that are volunteers, whether it's the libraries, whether it's Neighbors Link, and the spirit that we saw, you know, at Oktoberfest, you see that in other municipalities too. And I really mean it when I say it's such an honor and pleasure to represent the district I represent. So thank you all. And I'll be back I'm not sure when my next report will be, probably after the next legislative session, which looks as though it's going to be, shall we say, pretty interesting. So
Thank you, Chris.
thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care.
I'd like to propose a resolution to approve the consent agenda consisting of minutes of the September 27th and October 12th meetings.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to move to asking John Wolf to provide us with a quarterly report on the comprehensive plan. Thank you, Sean. Do I
Okay,
sound that bad? Yes.
I'm John Wolf. I'm a member of the Comprehensive Plan Committee. I'm representing Catherine McGinn, our chair. And the other members are Charlene Indelgado, Mark Robbins, and Larry Manga.
John, you are welcome to remove or reduce your mask so we can hear you with greater clarity.
Yeah, you just changed the name.
What? Thanks.
Okay. And of course, Kirsten Conran is our administrator who does the lion's shares of our work. So I'd also like to thank some of the board members, Jane Crimmins and Dan Welch, who are our advisors who pitch in and do the work. And I also like to thank Tony, who helped me on the CFA grant, which is no easy thing. Jane pitched in on a weekend. And, that was not a fun adventure doing that. But and also Jan Anderson from the planning board helps us with advice. Our last update was at the town board meeting on July 26th. If you want to review that, it's in the minutes. And you are welcome to look at our comprehensive plan website for all kinds of interesting information. So in the time I have, I'd like to update the town board committee on work since the last update, remainder of the projects in outline, and near-term next steps, and then questions. If that's all right, I will get started. Okay. Just to go over what's happened then since July, the CFA grant was submitted. We weren't sure we were going to get that in. But
Just in the nick of time.
yeah, it was a learning experience, if nothing else. But the survey continues to collect responses. We continued to drafting and collecting feedback on the RFP, with the town planner, the attorney, to the planning board. And Charlene did a phenomenal job, by the way, of putting this thing together. We, in August, in order to spur the survey, the town-wide postcard mailer was sent out, and I think it was very successful. Reminder about the survey was placed in the Parks and Recs brochure. And we also identified and began to research Hudson River Valley Greenway Community Grants. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. We collected formal feedback from all the town boards, including the ZBA, ECARC, and on the RFP. We also had a information session with the town administrator, Lise Robertson, and that notes are on our webpage. So that was very educational for us. In fact, you could kind of call this session
Town assessor.
Yeah, and you can kind of say this is our education period. So the RFP was finalized in September. The RFP was finalized, approved for publication by the board. It's available on the Lewisboro website, the New York Planning Federation website, and the American Planning Association New York Update Chapter website. So that's out. We also had a table at the library fair to encourage people to take the survey. We had a YouTube education system session for ourselves and others on intro to planning, zoning, and land use. We received guidance on the Greenway Community Grants opportunity, which said not this year. So put it in next year. The survey continues to collect responses. We had a big jump after the mailing, and we're approximately 600. I think that was our original goal. We've now set our goal at 800. So
Congratulations.
Have they been equally distributed through town, the responses?
well, I don't have results yet. We're trying to do it, but all the post offices have them
Okay,
for people who can't get on the internet, and then the rest of it, it's done virtually. So
right.
but-
That's right. Yes.
right, library, all the post offices. So most of them are coming in virtually. A handful are coming in from the
Yeah.
post offices.
Okay.
So.
Do you have a target date for tabulating the
No,
feedback?
there's no real reason to,
Okay.
we can keep collecting them until we get the
Mhm.
consultant. So.
Okay.
there's no
When
real-
is the closing? When do you decide on the RFP?
Well, we get the, you're getting ahead, getting me.
Sorry,
ahead.
I'll shut
Yeah. Let the individual finish.
So, but I will answer that. Okay. All right. So our next meeting is actually tomorrow, weather permitting, with what I see in the weather.
Yeah. That's right.
But so we have three phases. We have introductory, which is the one we're in now, community engagement, And then finally, the plan update itself. Okay. So we're currently in the introductory phase. That includes the survey, the education systems sessions, their search for the consultant. And we expect this phase to last until the spring. Because it will, once we get the RFPs in, which is, I think our deadline is November 15th, then we have to interview and analyze them. You have to look at them, all the other boards look at them. So that will take a while to get that going and then meet with whoever we pick. The next phase is community involvement. Okay, and that's once we have the consultant, they will help us drive how to do that, which groups to reach, how to do that in such a way that it's fair and cuts across the entire community. We want to get all the issues and opportunities from the community. We want to make this community-based process. So, as I said, fair and equal opportunities for all community members. So we will have sessions with the consultant, the town board, the planning board, the ZBA, and each of the town councils and committees. All the different chairs have been contacted to let them know this is coming, but again, this will be in the spring. And then the final phase, which will be actually putting together the update. It will be a draft. And this will take place in either late 2022 or early 2023. And again, this timeline at this point is fluid. We're still learning. As the update takes place, there'll be public hearings and additional input. And it will be, as I said, there will be a draft and a recommendation to the board, but the town board actually approves what we do. Ongoing activities include quarterly updates like this one to the town board, regular meetings broadcast via YouTube, and we're doing 1 or 2 a month now. And keeping our web page on the town site updated with what we learn, different information. As I said, the RFP deadline for response is November 15th. And that will be, that will get the next phase going. Questions?
I don't really have a question right now. I just want to say that this committee is a really superstar team led by Catherine McGinn as the chair, working diligently and hard. And that community engagement piece is going to stretch across this introductory phase through the survey. So we really, really encourage people to take that survey. The more, the better. And it is a fair and equitable approach. And that is the only way that the committee is taking feedback right now until a consultant is hired, which will, as John said, boost us into phase 2 of the formal community engagement. So I really just wanted to reiterate those points and also just extend my sincere thanks. A lot of hard, diligent, and professional work has gone into this, and we're very lucky to have these individuals lead us through the process.
You're here.
And I would just make a comment that I worked at IBM for many years, went to probably 1,000 meetings, and nobody has ever run one better than Katie McGinn.
She's fantastic.
Mhm.
She's
That's right.
fantastic. And from the get-go, she was real kind of structured, and it was almost an imposed structure, and there was a little wiggling around that. And now it's been this beautiful process because of that. The meetings are efficient, they are agendaed, she takes this. She has tasks at the end that carry over, so you're checking in every time. I mean, it's really impressive. She's an impressive individual.
And she keeps us to our time limits.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That meeting is 90 minutes and no longer. And if it's shorter.
So any questions?
None here. Anybody? No.
I'd just like to thank you, John, for your work with this committee.
All of us,
Excellent
right?
job so far.
Yeah, it's a good group.
Yeah. That's great.
Thank you,
And
John.
I think I'm the only one on the group who was around for the 1985
Not quite.
about committee.
On the committee. Okay. I was decidedly around at that time.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Next, I'd like a resolution approving the bid of City Carting, AKA Wind Waste Innovations, for removal of refuse and recycling from town facilities with a 1-year renewal option at the same rate.
Before we vote on this, is it possible to call them about the complaint we got today?
No, it's already been taken
Thank
care
you.
of.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Janet.
Sorry. No, not sorry. I mean,
No need to apologize.
This was the Wild Oaks issue, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Oh,
it was
so you need a
resolved
resolution.
to.
Yeah, can I have a second?
So that was resolved to some satisfaction?
It was.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Wow, great.
Okay.
So second,
On discussions with refuse removal, and Janet is the best person because they think of her as the boss,
mhm.
Yes.
because she basically approves all
Sure.
all licenses and all agreements.
So second,
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
thank you, Janet. That's great.
I'd like to move on to an item I admit I don't fully understand because I thought it was resolved. Discussion of completed ADA trail and Lewisboro Playground project.
Oh, okay. Well, the Lewisboro.
I'm turning to you because I think.
Because I
you-
asked to put it on the agenda.
I guessed.
Yes. So the Lewisboro Town Park Playground Improvement Project one, I mean, Chris covered a lot of it. I wanted to thank the New York State Assembly for the $400,000 grant. I also think we should discuss amongst ourselves a formal commendation to bring in the playground committee group and get an update. And I think that Oktoberfest in the Lewisboro Town Park was one of the most successful events this community has seen since I've been here. It was over 1,000 people. So I was hoping to see what you all thought of that.
That sounds great.
Good.
Yeah.
So maybe the next meeting.
Yes.
Great. So Peter,
we'll
will you
do-
reach out to the committee if I give you their emails?
Yep, and we will do I will write up a commendation,
Thank you. And
unless you want to.
well, we can bounce that off of each other. So let's see. Also, there was a mention that the purchasing of equipment, so the prices on the playground equipment is going to go up as of January 1st. So if there's possibilities to purchase some of the equipment that is going to go in no matter what, even if we don't know who the installer is going to be, I think it would be very wise for us to push for a purchasing plan and see how much we could actually get purchased before the 1st in an effort to save money.
Do you want to work with Dana on that? Because
Well,
aren't you the
so-
liaison?
Yeah, so it's already being worked on. So we're actually meeting with the vendor and their supplier through Sourcewell, which is national contracts that we can go through to purchase the equipment. So we're going to get an updated price list. And once we have that, we can then make a determination as to when we would be at a position to purchase any of that equipment.
Can you involve the committee in that?
Oh, they are.
Okay,
They are.
good.
Yeah, so we have a meeting hopefully this week still.
Do we have a storage? We have a storage issue? Let's say we're able to take advantage of an opportunity to purchase some
Maybe the
equipment.
vendor,
Okay.
maybe the vendor.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
Delivery could be.
I think by now, the barn at Onitru is probably empty
Mhm.
from the library fair. Did you say no? Okay, I thought you shook your head at me.
Did you make a bid on the?
Yeah, I mean, if the vendor can store it for us, I mean, it depends.
That would be
on their-
great.
Yeah, if the vendor can store it and then deliver it when it's ready to be installed.
That makes the most sense.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make everybody aware that we were made aware that prices will go up on January 1st. So,
Or refuse it.
Yeah.
and then I spoke to everybody today. So for the ADA trail, I spoke to everybody today about the bridge and engaging the excavating company who finished the trail in the process of building the bridge. And one of you all had asked me to get a proposal from the excavating company. And so that's out. And I will let you all know when it comes back. But
The only other thing I'd like you to consider is Michael Surdej has got a record on building bridges, which is quite incredible. I'm sure you've walked the trail at the high school, and you can take trucks across those bridges down there.
so initially, that was one of the things that we had considered. And then, the trail has been finished, and given the ADA specifications for the trail, and also the very nice job that was done on the trail, as well as a timeliness. And then it was your suggestion with some of the leftover money we had in the coffers that an option presented itself. We could go ahead and approach the excavating company.
Okay, I'm just saying that one option is Michael Surdej,
Yes, definitely.
because if you've walked the high school trail,
And Brownell too.
yeah, but that's different.
Yeah.
See what his
You can't
availability
drive
is.
trucks across the bridges in Brownell.
He actually helped with the bridge that my son built for his Eagle project, which the bridge itself is ADA compliant.
Okay,
And my son's Eagle Scout project. Also.
So he's
This is small enough that you might even have like a package bridge that you can actually purchase and bring it right in. Maybe it's
Maybe,
one of
yeah.
those
does the
options.
US
So,
Army sell them as surplus?
we can try that. We could,
Save money on labor.
They used to, I
Yeah,
can
right.
promise you, because the British Army used to buy them from the American Army. All right. You don't need any resolution, do you?
No.
So just a discussion.
I'd like to propose a resolution authorizing the planning board to consider and act upon Oak Ridge Gardens, Laurel Ridge's request for a final bond release. There is some question that's been raised by you, I think, mainly by you, Rich,
Yes.
that there are some unpaid building department fees. And we should probably pass this subject to Phil Pine settling those building department fees, and subject to to the town attorney agreeing that that's proper. Is it?
It's not technically proper, but
In that case, I'm going to get shot down by Greg, aren't I, as
it's
usual?
okay, but I'm gonna check if there's latitude for it based upon, I'd have to read what was stated in this performance bond, have to read if there's a section in your code that allows for us to take that position. So you can certainly pass as you just had. What you were about to say, you can continue on with that. And we'll check it for you tomorrow to see if there's any position to take to be able to enforce getting those building department fees.
Thank you, Jen. That would be extraordinarily good, because the fact is we've sat on this request
Understood.
via the town bureaucracy for some time.
Okay.
Do we want to describe to the public what this is about exactly? I don't think you did that. I could read, I have
All
a
right.
description here. So basically this
It will
was.
take a week, won't it?
No,
high level, high
2
level.
minutes. So this was there was, excuse me, a cash bond posted for the performance of work in the extension of the water and sewer districts that serve the Laurel Ridge townhomes. These are the new townhomes that are being built. So that had been approved a while back, the actual work, and they're at a position now where the health department approved the extension of the water and sewer connections, and they're looking to get the performance bonds reimbursed, 2 of which have already been reimbursed.
But there's another 29,000.
27,000.
27,000.
Yeah.
Due. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I would like to, I've got a discussion regarding parking on Boulder Lane. Do you want to speak on that, Rich? It's nearest to you.
Well, I can. We've received correspondence from the resident at Boulder Lane Townhouse Owners Association
Is she on
I
Zoom?
don't know if
maybe?
she's available because it's a September 27, 2021 email. I don't know if the person who forwarded the letter is
What?
available to
Nicole
discuss it.
Zinner?
Yes.
So how did this get on the, so how is this on the agenda?
Because
It was
the
requested.
last paragraph of this email was essentially, of this letter was, please consider this email as an official request to add this topic to the next town board meeting.
And Nicole is on
Okay.
Zoom, so maybe we can ask her if she wants to say a few words.
Okay,
She could raise her hand if you want me to.
Nicole Zinna, if you'd like to say a few words about this, you can raise your hand.
Okay, there she is. Nicole, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you for allowing us to come to this meeting and talk. And sorry I'm not there in person, but I'd like to just discuss the parking issue on Boulder Lane and Golden's Bridge. As many of you may have known, in December of 2020, there was a 2-unit fire on Boulder Lane.
So
trucks-
Nicole, just to, sorry to interject for 1 second.
No, go ahead.
In what capacity are you here? Just as a resident?
As a
or,
resident, correct.
Okay. Thanks.
As a resident and a board member of the HOA.
the HOA for Boulder, right?
Correct. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. So in December of 2020, there was a 2-unit fire on Boulder Lane. Fire trucks and other emergency vehicles couldn't get through due to the fact that, we utilize the parking on Boulder Lane, both residents, visitors, contractors, and it's a very narrow road. We as an association have tried to enforce a no parking rule with our residents here, but right now there's actually no other options for parking on any of the surrounding streets in this neighborhood. So I'm here today asking the town board to help us create an alternative parking area for residents to ensure safety and quality of living. We have a couple of suggestions as far as where we'd like to park. These are just suggestions, but we're looking for the board to kind of, help us define where parking would be allowed. Right now on Fairmont Road, there are spots cut out by Quincy Court. There's maybe about 4 spots there in a little area on the side of the road, but there's no overnight parking. So we would really like to remove those overnight parking restrictions to allow residents to park there. We also are looking for additional legal parking anywhere on Fairmont Road without time restrictions. We wouldn't want to directly impact any sort of homeowners or oppose their driveways. So this would be any area on Fairmont that doesn't have homes and it's more of a private area without any sort of driveway impact. Parking spots could be designated on one side of the road, anywhere between White Birch Street and Lowell Court. We'd prefer not to disturb the existing Fairmont Road homeowners with a petition or an approval process just yet. We're asking for the town board to help us and step in and provide us with suggestions if possible, from what is really possible from a parking perspective anywhere around the Boulder Lane vicinity. Residents would be open to literally anything. So that's my piece. I will go back to mute if that's what I'm supposed to do.
I have a couple of questions. Thanks for your correspondence. What do your governing documents say as far as parking on Boulder Lane? Is that precluded?
I don't believe we actually have parking listed as an item in our governance. It's just a private road, but it's very, very narrow. So whenever anyone does utilize it for parking, it's hard for everybody to get through, especially oversized vehicles like fire trucks or.
Understood. Isn't that for the homeowners association to enforce against the homeowners on that private road to make sure that they're not parking on it and blocking traffic from getting through?
I would agree with you. It is an association issue. However, we do not have anywhere else to park because the roads around here are all no parking. So we're kind of in a predicament where if we say no parking, people cannot, visit anyone that lives here. So Personally, for me, I just bought a home in this neighborhood back in June, and it's already a huge issue with the residents here. It's been a standing issue for years. So, as a new resident and for prospective residents coming into this area, it's just going to continue to be an issue. So that's why I've decided to join the board, come here today, and try and see if there's, any sort of resolution or suggestion you guys can help with.
Yeah, what concerns me is that what you're proposing, first of all, I think we've gotten correspondence from the highway department, and they're against this because they need that area for their operations, number one. And what you're suggesting is that you're eliminating overnight, any kind of overnight parking restrictions. So there's nothing to stop a resident from simply parking in a spot, and leaving their car there for months. And there's nothing that could be done about it. And it's not, what you talk about a resolution, what you're proposing is not necessarily going to resolve the problem. You're going to have an extra 2 or 3 cars based upon a first come, first served, which somebody can leave it for an unlimited amount of time and then not violating any provision of law.
And it could be somebody that's not necessarily from Boulder.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, even if we were to institute maybe a sticker system for residents, I'm not sure how all that works, but it is something that we've thought about.
And how many spots are in that cutout on Fairmount?
I'd say
Road? Is
3 to
that 2 or
4.
3? 3 or 4?
Yeah.
I should tell you that not only is the highway superintendent strongly against this, he is scared that when he comes by plowing, he will plow cars in. Then people will grab hold of shovels and shovel the snow back into the road where it freezes and causes problems. This is not an ideal situation for a town which has to plow 96 miles of roads and needs to move very fast to do it. Secondly, the chief of police is not exactly ecstatic about this idea, which is to put it mildly, and and just sees it as a cause of trouble, rather like the trouble that the town board and I managed to create on Park Road. That was unintentional, but it was a big lesson to us about adjusting parking in an area where parking is scarce. So personally, I'm afraid I don't think there is much we can do about this. It's a private road, and I think the homeowners association is going to have to figure it out.
And Nicole, I have a question. How many units are over at Boulder Lane?
I want to say 30.
30 units, and how many spots are you looking for?
We would love at least 5 to 10. I mean, anything would help us. And again, just to your point on the snow, we would be okay if there were certain months of the year where there was no parking at all. I think, anything would really help at this point to just create more spots in the warmer months where there isn't, a plowing issue. So that is an option as well.
Also, what concerns me, aside from the highway and police being against it, is that there's also a sightline issue around that curve coming down on Boulder. So it's potentially dangerous based upon the traffic in the morning and the residents that are walking alongside it every morning with people with their dogs and walking to the bus stop, et cetera. So I'm concerned about the sightline issue right outside Boulder as well.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but at the moment, I don't think we have a solution.
Okay.
Is there an option? We have that, we have that property that's town owned, the one that the GBHO want to turn into a pocket park. And just north of that, there is a driveway, and I noticed that people do use that to park their cars.
Which is just off Fairmont, right?
Correct. Can that potentially be an area designated for a handful of spots potentially?
It's a single driveway, number one. It's in terrible shape, number two,
Yeah.
and it's a potential town liability. You're asking people, allowing people to park on terribly road in terrible shape, which they shouldn't be on to start with. And plus the fact, again, the sightline issue coming back, you're coming right on a hill into a lane, into traffic.
I've driven in there and regretted it.
Into that driveway?
Yes.
I was on the town board that Peter mentioned getting involved in a civil parking issue on a private road because I have empathy for this issue, and it just wasn't the right place for us to be, and we weren't very helpful despite our best intentions. And so I appreciate you coming forward. I hope that there is some resolution to this issue, and it can be found through the HOA. And I wish that we could be more helpful to you, but I think from experience, we've learned that we can't be.
Okay, well, thank you for allowing the time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
talking.
Thanks.
Nicole.
I have a resolution here to approve a waiver of insurance for the Golden's Bridge Pocket Park.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not sure I want to do that.
Right.
Well,
Something must have happened for this to come up. Someone learned something.
Yeah, so it came up because originally they went out and they got a quote for insurance. Now they were looking for, it was a very high liability number, I think $5 million, and the cost was it was expensive, the premium. They then went and looked for a lower liability policy, lower liability amount, and the number's better, but it's still a cost to them, to the organization. And so the question came up: how do we allow other organizations to, for example, the Lions Club, when we get together on in a town park or a town facility to hold events, and the use of that park is minimal, right? And it is covered under the town's liability insurance today. So the thought was, can we stick with what we have today and allow them to have this use of the pocket park?
The issue
without
on
the
top
extra
of that
insurance?
is, unlike any other situation in town that I'm aware of, GBHO, what was negotiated and which we approved unanimously was a licensing agreement whereby GBHO does not own or lease that area, and it can be terminated immediately at any time by the town. That's the way the licensing agreement is set up. So I think that based upon the very small dimensions that we're talking about, the fact that it's going to be all sweat equity by GBHO to put it together as well as maintain it. I think that, and plus the fact that it may, based upon what happens down the road, it may be something that may be pulled out from under based upon the terms of the licensing agreement. That's why I'm asking for it to be waived, since it's town-owned property. It'll be covered under that, and it's a very minimal use. It's a very passive use, as the plans that have been proposed to us. It's something I think we want to encourage for the Wild Oaks community. A lot of young families where they can walk down there, take a carriage down there. And I'm sure that one of the things we can do is check in with GBHO and make sure, even under the licensing agreement, that they're required to report to us, to the town board, periodically to make sure that there's no maintenance issues or anything. So we have that on a schedule to make sure all our concerns are addressed on a periodic basis. That's built into the licensing agreement.
I'd like to take an opportunity to discuss this with our lawyers, which I haven't had, before we reach a conclusion on it. I'm always a little bit worried because if somebody has a choice, for instance, of claiming against a small organization or the town, they'll go for the town every damn time.
Every time.
Regardless of whether the small organization has insurance or not.
Yes.
Okay.
But couldn't a person do that today, walking in there?
Yes.
Oh, look, here's a place I can walk around, and they trip and they say, you know what, you didn't warn me about
You're
this
right.
rock standing there. So,
Which is
like-
why I want to discuss it, because people do make pretty outrageous claims. Now, is that at the moment, I would assume that the trails in there are under the same rules as trails in Leon Levy. Where,
There are no trails in there.
well, paths.
No.
There aren't
Well,
any paths in there?
Well,
There's
whatever
not going to be. There's going to be a partial is what the licensing, the proposal that was.
As soon as you put a path in, then we would get the same problem. We would get the same thing as we've got at Leon Levy, where I think you cannot sue the town if it's a nature trail.
But then you start to get into a situation where if you're going to officially call this a nature trail, do you have an issue where it's now, de facto parkland? And when you try to, turn it into something else, you have this obligation, which would be as if you were taking parkland and taking out of service and to alienate and whatnot.
With all due respect, Dan, that's why I would like to take legal advice on it. And now you're welcome to give me legal advice.
Well, the bigger issue, as I understand it, is the question was posed to NYMER, and NYMER's made it clear that they request non-contributory insurance. So the free discussion that, well, it's town property, so we're covered, may not be the case, as NYMER could refuse coverage based on the fact that they've given an opinion that they request this insurance.
Well, I guess
So
the
of course,
issue.
you're free to do whatever, but you run that potential scenario.
Well, I
And you
guess
have
the
to
issue
think
is-
about the project. Is it worth running that risk for the scenario? That's really what it comes down to, is I think there's like risk with any licensing agreement that you enter with liability, and you have to weigh the necessity of the project. And I think it's really admirable for the GBHO to be stepping up to volunteer all their time to both build this and maintain it. But I think that it's also incumbent upon us to help set boundaries around that, of how much work that really is and how much people power that takes. So that's another thing that I'm weighing in my head, is that I understand this NYMER liability issue, and I'm weighing it against the potential benefits of this park and it being utilized and maintained. And so I think that's where I was the last time we discussed it, and I'm still in that space.
Well, I guess it's just a matter of clarifying with NYMER exactly what they're clarifying from an underwriting perspective, how they're assessing this. If they're grouping this as if some other kind of park or on a true when it's not, maybe some clarification as to what it is and what it's not can help to nail that down as part of the underwriting process, to make sure that because we're not, the issue is we still, no matter what was to happen, the town still owns it, and that goes for the entire parcel, and including the pond and everything else. So I mean, I think all of the things, having a set of eyes there and having improvement there, I think actually is beneficial to the town as well as the community.
Actually, we have a member of the GBHO with their hand up. Do we want to listen to them?
Yep.
Jody Shear.
Jody, I'm asking you to unmute.
And really up.
Is she actually?
So this time my hand was really up. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. The portion of the property that we would like to use is the first 1.5 acres closest to Route 138, which is wetlands. So this is not property that really could be used for anything else. The pond is there, and then that whole first 1.5 acres, just about the whole thing, is wetlands that can't really be improved upon anyhow. So to make it, like Rich said, to improve upon it in a way that makes it accessible to the neighbors without building anything on it or doing anything that's, things that you can't do to more invasive. would be a benefit, I think, not only to the neighborhood, but to the town, because truthfully, the pond like it is a liability. If we make it into a park and you have signs up there that say, you know, only open from dawn to dusk, you don't have to worry about kids going over there in the middle of the night and drinking or doing whatever else, because you've got now parameters on there that they have to meet, because you've got the signs up, because it is an official park and not just an abandoned piece of property that anybody can go into whenever they want.
I hear you, but I'd still like to stay with my original recommendation.
Yeah, we should run it by council to see what we can work out.
Let's take another run at it if we can. I mean, it's kind of annoying that we don't have this much flexibility with such.
Yeah,
small
it's
things.
not an apples and apples.
The policy, have they gotten a quote for just the minimum one too? Should cover us with NYMER, or I know the original policy was really high. Do you know?
Yeah, Jody, can you speak to that?
I don't know the numbers offhand. I do know that Jonathan got the quote for a $5 million policy and then for a $1 million policy. But really, the fact of the matter, I mean, to put it back to what every other organization in town that does work, say the Lions Club, you know, working on the pavilion at the town park, they're not paying insurance on that pavilion in perpetuity. Why should we be paying insurance on this park in perpetuity? It doesn't make any sense that we're being treated differently than other organizations in town. And so if you're not making anybody else pay for insurance on their improvements on town property, then you shouldn't be asking us to do it either. I mean, it's only fair. We're a very small not-for-profit. We barely have any money. We'd have to do fundraisers just to get the money to pay for our insurance. I mean, it's kind of silly. I mean, you've got a group of people who really want to improve on what's really an eyesore of a piece of property in town. And, you know, it's beyond my comprehension that you guys don't want us to do it. I mean, it seems like you're putting a lot of barricades up here for us, for a group of people who really want to, you know, improve their neighborhood and make a beautiful walking area that the most densely populated part of town can all walk to without having to get into a car and drive to and enjoy. And it's just, that's our issue with it. I see Jonathan's here now and he's got his hand up. He can probably talk a little bit more to this, but it's not fair if you're asking us to carry insurance on this property that's not even ours, that it's the town's. And like you said, you could pull it out from us at any time. Why should we have to carry that insurance when other organizations don't?
Maybe more of an apples and apples is to have the insurance while the work is being done and it's until it comes online. Maybe that's,
And we're happy to do that. That's definitely, I think should be done. But not, not once the park is done and the work is done. It's a town piece of property and it's a liability to you guys right now with a pond there that is so close to the road with no signs up and no warnings at all. I mean, that's more, I think, more of a liability than having a park there.
So Jonathan Monty's on. We want to.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jody. Very persuasive.
John, real
Do you
quick.
want John?
Yeah. 2 minutes, John. All right, 3.
Okay, just Jody said it most eloquently. I can't even add more to her to what she had said because that's exactly how I feel. I'm just going to speak to the numbers, and I'll just reinforce the fact that the project could be pulled out from underneath us at any point, and that's why we don't feel it's appropriate also to pay insurance on that. Aside from the fact that other organizations, improve parcels of property within town and don't have to pay insurance on that. Yes, we would be more than happy to pay our insurance for when work is done. Just to give you numbers, the original quote of the $5 million policy would be $5,000 and a $5,000 annual cost, and there's no way that we could swing that. A $1 million policy would be over $500 a year, and that's not something we as a board could justify, again, with it being pulled out at a moment's notice. So.
Okay,
thank you.
I'm sticking with what I said at the beginning. I want I know that Greg has looked at this in some detail already, and I'd like his advice before I go forward. Otherwise, I'm a bit of an idiot. Probably I am anyway,
And-
but
and
that's,
Rich, if you have comments that you want to insert in that dialogue with Greg, that would be great. Seems like you have some thoughts on it.
me.
No, Rich.
Oh,
Well, you too, but.
All right, so we'll do that.
okay, thanks.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
I'm going to skip the next item because the gentleman who is proposing it is not here and is not able to be here. I'd like to move on to a discussion of the 2022 town budget. Basically, we have a budget now being proposed, which is within the cap.
Woohoo.
Leo, do you want to take over? If you
Speak
don't
up.
want to, I'll go on.
Leo, I'll share that file.
Yes, please do.
See it.
Technology.
Since this happened the whole time. While you're setting up, how did that CHIPS money sound relative to what we have in there?
This is just like in a ballgame, everybody's applauding.
Yeah, it's an applause for you. That's right.
So what'd you say, Joel? Update?
Something what?
Joel said no.
Joel said no?
No.
He's shaking his head
Don't
no.
update? All right. First of all, I'd like to thank Joel and the maintenance crew for making my accommodations as comfortable as Bob Cratchit, but that's okay.
That was for Joel and maintenance.
All right. So we're in the tentative budget stage. I'll bring it to the tax rate schedule again. We did a lot of doctoring up on the tax rate and the taxes from last time, and this is where we ended up. Our tax rate change from last year is now at 2.656. Now let's spend a little time on this schedule. This is for the town tax. As you can see, it's a general fund and the highway fund. And the accumulation or the difference in appropriations for the general fund is $1 million. That's kind of an anomaly. It's really like a one-off because what this includes is Park and Rec coming back to life in 2022 versus their budget in 2021. So quite a bit of this increase in the appropriations is due to that, as well as quite a bit of the increase in revenue that it deals with Park and Rec. In addition, on the appropriations side, this $1 million is influenced by the police budget and the maintenance budget. The increase in appropriations in the highway budget is really due to two things. It's the reintroduction of road paving, which was not in last year's budget, but is in this year's budget, and also increased debris removal expense. And that's pretty much the two amounts that impact this 221.
From the assemblyman, I thought I heard from the CHIPS in the paved New York, I was about just over 250,000.
But
right?
if it's reimbursable CHIPS, then it's on the revenue side as well as the expense side. So when we get to the highway fund, we can inject those changes in the adjustment column. So the net interest rate or the net percentage change from one budget to the next, or from this budget to last year's budget, is 3.038%. Up here, the rate change is 2.656. We're impacted or we're benefited this year, as a reminder, because our assessed value increased to 294 million versus last year's 293 million. That 1 million difference benefits us by 0.372. If you were to add this 0.372 to this rate, you would get within hundreds of this 3.038 rate. So that's the relationship between the two. We'll move to the tax cap schedule, if that's okay. So remember this rate, 3.038. Remember this percentage change, 3.038. At the last meeting, I blurted out what is, Dan had asked me, what's the percentage or the impact of these two factors? And I had said it's about 2.1. I should have said it's about 2.4%. So anybody could see that it's 2.38 when these two factors multiplied each other. So that's the percentage change that the town, its entire taxes can increase from last year in order to stay within the tax cap. It actually goes to 4 decimal places, 2.3876. So for argument's sake, it's 2.4%. So I asked you to remember that 3.036 from the prior schedule.
038, right?
3.038. Nice memory.
3.038.
That 3.038 impacts the town line, and that's why we're over the cap. We needed to stay with at a rate of 2.3876, but we were at 3.038. So that's why there's this amount that's over the cap. But the tax cap calculation is not just based on the town tax, the highway and general fund. You also take into consideration the special districts. And this year, I believe the special districts can have a reduced proposed tax levy, all 3 of them. Why? Oak Ridge Sewer had a refinancing. Their bond is subsidized by the EFC, and the EFC refinanced that bond. It's saving about $30,000 a year in debt service. Additionally, the Oak Ridge Sewer fund balance is healthy enough so that we can reduce the proposed tax levy. This 490,000 is just about where it was in 2019. And that district had a tax levy limit of almost 520,000. We can use 490 and that benefits the tax cap calculation by almost $30,000.
And Leo, to clarify, this is the bond that was used for sewer plant upgrades when the town took over the plants.
Correct. Okay. Which came into play in 2010.
Right. Okay.
And it goes out to 2039.
Right.
Okay. 29-year bond.
Wild Oaks Lighting. It's a small fund, as you can see by the amount of expenditures.
So the EFC refinance, that ends up reducing water charges as well.
No,
sewer only.
Not at all.
Sewer only. Again, Oak Ridge Water is not part of the tax cap.
Gotcha.
And Oak Ridge
Water sewer charges.
Sewer charges.
So
sewer tax.
Sewer tax. So
right? So that district is taxed on assessed value.
Okay.
And so each dwelling gets, if we go through with the 490, their pro rata share of that.
Okay. That'll result in a reduction.
Excuse me?
That'll result in a reduction.
Should.
Yeah.
Should for each of the homeowners.
Okay.
Wild Oaks Lighting, again, it's a small fund, but their fund balance is large enough where if there is additional expenses above and beyond the 14,000, the fund balance can handle it. And that is more so with the Wild Oak Sewer. They have a very healthy fund balance. We can reduce, you can see that to remain in the tax cap, it's about 146,000, but I think we can drop their taxes to 130,000. Last year was 142,000, and the year before that it was higher. So I think all 3 of the special districts can have reduced tax loads this year.
When you say in the fund balance of the sewer and lighting, is there a certain ratio as far as fund balance it should be for accepted?
2
I
months.
don't know if I'm asking the question right.
You can go with about 20% of the appropriations. And right now, all three of these districts are above 20%.
Okay, so 20% would be acceptable figure to,
Correct.
okay.
But I would say it's somewhat debatable with sewer districts as well as water districts, only in the sense that from my experience, you can have large repair numbers in any given year. So I would feel comfortable with 20%. And right now, both sewer districts are above that 20%. So there's room to play with that. But that's always something to consider about the districts.
Okay.
Any other questions on tax cap? So right now at this stage, even with the town tax being over by almost 50,000, we're still within the colloquial 2% tax cap limit. I'll bring you to the general revenue page, but we spent a lot of time on this page last time. I don't think we need to spend as much time. I'll just bring you down to the adjustments. We increased interest and penalties in the tax area because that's what their experience shows, and it should remain that way. We increased the building inspector fees by 90 to make it 600,000. We increased park and rec by 100,000 to make it 1.1 million.
And these are increases over the requested budget from the department.
Yes, these adjustments are what we decided to do at the last meeting.
This is our revenue. You're giving us our revenue modifications at a glance from last time.
That's right.
Okay.
And we also increased sales tax and mortgage tax because of what the last year or so experience has been and what this year's experience has been thus far and what our anticipation is. So I guess we'll move to the general fund appropriation schedule. What I'll try to do is, and if I'm going too slowly, just kick me a bit. What I'll try to do is just explain where some of the larger variances are. The town board has no variances. Justice Court, just a couple of variances in this area. Last year's numbers, again, for the Justice Court, they were influenced by COVID. Remember, they weren't holding court, so a lot of their expenses were dropped down, or a few of their expenses were dropped down, and this year they're picked up to normal size.
So the court reporter increase is predicated upon more activity.
That's the assumption.
Okay.
But on the other side of the coin, they did not choose to increase their fine level, and we decided to go with their request and not increase their fine level. So we kept it at 100,000. Again, even though the anticipation may be something more.
Do you know what it was last year about?
Well, last year was just about 100,000. Again, that was COVID related. Prior years, roughly 200.
Okay.
Closer to 200. Supervisor's office, no changes to report. Finance department, I dropped it down 100, just to give a little token to you guys.
Wait, say it again. Where did you drop?
I dropped it down by $100.
Oh, by $100. Okay.
The external auditor, their fee is going to be 37,000, or has been 37,000, so it dropped it to 37 for this year. Receiver of taxes, there were a couple of just changes. This line, the deputy receiver of taxes, that's a replacement for an employee who left this year. So that is the current salary. And the hospital and medical benefits increased due to that transition. Assessment.
So that's a 25,000.
Correct. Correct.
So what?
For that one person?
Well,
because the
prior
deputy
person,
line is
the prior
goes
person
up.
took a buyout, replaced by a person who's taking family.
Okay.
So that's why there's a big jump.
She's also got a family of 18.
Assessment. The assistant assessment clerk was a part-time employee for roughly half of 2021. About mid-year, we converted that employee to a full-time position. And that employee is sharing duties with the building department to lend assistance to the building department, as well as taking care of the zoning board meetings.
So you're breaking it up 50-50 with the salary as well as benefits between the two
Well,
departments?
again, the salaries, I guess, will be further discussed in the executive session,
Right.
but you'll see in building that there's a line item that takes into consideration her being shared in that department as well. That transition from part-time to full-time impacted the hospital and medical benefits line. I chose to put the entire amount of medical in one department, and this is the lucky department that I chose to impact. So there's a difference from year to year's budget from 173 to 207 in the assessment department. Town clerk, her budget decreased. So that's Janet's ability to decrease and control her expenses. For attorneys, I think the planning board attorney fee can, or the estimate for the planning board attorney can be decreased from 1 year to the next. You may have more inside information than I, but I think 25,000 at this point is a safe bet. And the prosecutor fee could be dropped a little bit as well. Planning board, there's no changes there. Elections. This comes directly from the county, right? This election, Janet, this election expense. So that's what the 7355 is a good number. Records management.
The engineer, sorry to go back, the A1440 line, is that for Jan?
That's Kelly session.
That's the Jan, okay.
Yeah.
And that's in accordance with the existing contract?
Yes. Yeah. And there's a similar number in the planning board area.
Okay. And what's the term of that contract? Is it
I don't know.
that renewed every year or?
I don't know if it's something I had.
No.
I think it's less frequently than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't
Oh,
remember.
certainly.
I can't remember the last time it was discussed.
It's some years since I put it out to bid. Let's put it that way.
Right. Elections.
So it's whatever the term is automatically renewed. Is that
Yeah.
basically what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Just a small increase in records management due to record storage fee. Shared services. So this is the maintenance area. The biggest change here is due to the planned retirement transition. And that impacts the salaries for the maintenance workers. As you can see, 318 versus 387, as well as the overtime line, which is a combination of what is anticipated due to the transition, as well as continuing increased cleaning for COVID related. That's about it for that area. The slight increase is really due to increased stamp prices from one year to the next. Technical services. Licensing fee increased, and Joel estimated it or has information to that the license fee increased to 19.5. And that's the difference in that category. Based on experience this year, I think we could drop the anticipated expense for LCTV. Property insurance, which includes all of the insurance, including auto insurance. It's really a 2% increase off of actual. So the 160 number last year's budget, I think this year it's about 165. So I'm adding about 2% to that number. Again, this includes additional vehicles, and when there's additional vehicles, and there's additional insurance expense. Change, the assessor did not anticipate any judgments or claims.
For which she should be commended.
This adjustment we can talk about in the fund balance restoration, we talk about in executive session.
Just to go, I was just checking on the going back on the A1620 cell phone service. So do we ever put that out as far as that's one contract for all the ones in town?
Where are you looking?
I'm sorry, I'm back on 162406.
1620 406. Cell phone
Line
service?
number 252.
Right, 13,200. You want us to change our cell phone?
No, I just
provider?
wondering if it's ever been.
Is that Verizon?
It's Verizon.
That's Verizon, right?
Okay,
Which traditionally has been the better service in town until we got the new antennas and cell service installed. Maybe.
Yes, in fact, as this gentleman can tell you, AT&T service is not immaculate.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Well,
I'm not
it's probably
saying to change
comparable now.
provider. I'm just wondering if anybody's.
That's why I'm saying with the new towers and the new antennas they put on, it's comparable. Verizon's no longer the better game.
Okay.
So we may want to.
I'm just wondering if anybody's looked at the cost recently, just if they could do better with the existing, I don't know. So.
How about the third?
Third carrier?
Yes.
T-Mobile?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're behind still.
They're still way behind.
Yeah.
Are they about to catch up?
Don't know. Haven't heard anything. I have to get an update. Yeah.
I'm not saying if that's the best coverage, we should stay with them. I'm just saying, I was wondering if anybody's talked to them about.
Well, as of this year, we have a second carrier that's providing comparable coverage to Verizon. So to your point, maybe it's worth looking, see what they offer. But then it means changing all the cell phones potentially.
Probably.
No, even so, I'm staying with the existing one. If the existing one could do a little better.
Yeah. That,
Or not. If not, not.
renegotiate.
Sorry.
So
So where are we now?
I think we're at police now.
Yes.
To the 3120 line 349.
Okay.
So the changes here, for officers part-time, that's the additional patrolman on shifts, which was approved to take place. It was approved in last year's budget. And This year, it's a full year versus last year's partial year.
That's for the 2-on for the shifts. Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
That's okay. That's just extrapolated out
The-
the whole year. Okay.
The difference in the sergeant and full-time officers line is the addition of another full-time police officer for half a year. So it's, $27,000 difference. So again, that's for 6 months worth of a full-time officer. Training, because of the new requirements, the training line has been increased. Gasoline is anticipated to increase again because of the second officer on the ship. So a second car is out. And the change in firearms, tasers, body-worn camera, this is purely because of the body-worn camera expense that started last year but wasn't budgeted for last year, but this year it's being budgeted. The state retirement number comes directly from New York State. So this is New York State's estimate for the police retirement fund.
I don't know how you're coming across on Zoom, but you may want to, because of the rain, you may want to
What would you like me to do?
raise your voice, maybe.
Sure.
Could you stop the rain just for a minute?
Come on, Leo, as controller.
Seriously, Leo.
Stop the rain.
I
kind of
think,
department
I think we just did. I think it's slowed down.
Slow it down.
All right, done.
Thank you. That would be great.
You've
There
just
you
done
go.
it.
I did it.
So this adjustment was done subsequent to last year's last board meeting. The decision was to remove the request for a full-time code enforcement officer. That's the reduction of the $50,000, bringing it back down to the $25,000 level. That was agreed upon in last year's budget, which was, the thought was that the current staff would be working on a part-time basis to cover the code enforcement duties. It really didn't work out as planned, as well as planned last year. But at this point, we're leaving that number in. Again, any adjustments can be made on your part if you choose. That reduction had a corresponding reduction to FICA as well as medical benefits. This is the fly card, the Advanced Life Support Services, and this number comes directly from FlyCar's estimate for the cost to cover Lewisboro.
So what is that? That's a contract we have for the annual services they provide.
Yes.
Right.
And
In the consortium with the other towns.
For
This is
Westchester,
our share.
it's WEMS, right? Westchester EMS?
yes,
How do they break that down for our town based upon population or area? How is it?
I've forgotten, but I think
It was-
it's population.
It is on populations, also based on experience that they've had in the prior year. So that's also part of the equation.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Leo.
Oh, no, I'm not done yet.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
I
because you
was
said
kind of
that's
talking to
it.
myself on that one, and I'm starting to cramp up.
I thought your accommodations were perfect. You did it like a round of applause for
telling you.
maintenance and everything. Sorry,
I
please
couldn't-
do
I
go
couldn't-
on, Leo.
I
Please do
couldn't
go
ask
on.
for more. One thing to consider as we're starting to get into the park and rec area. A lot of the expenses are elevated from last year, again, because last year was influenced by COVID, right? So a lot of their expenses were decreased because they knew they weren't going to be, or they thought they weren't going to be able to run programs last year. But this year, again, they've come back to life. So a lot of the expenditures here may look elevated from last year, but that's the reason. I'll only try to point out those areas that aren't really impacted by the change from COVID to this year. Again, subsequent to the last board meeting, the decision was to not seek an assistant park and rec superintendent, but to replace a rec assistant which had left during the course of last year. And so that's this decrease. We're just decreasing the payroll, the salary number, and we're settling here on a park rec assistant. Again, a corresponding decrease in FICA due to the salary difference. But again, no change in hospital because again, we're assuming that the new employee will be taking medical benefits.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so when you say last year, it was actually this year that employee.
Yeah, 2021. I'm sorry.
2021,
Yeah, this year.
Yeah.
She left in 2021.
Right. Okay.
General question, my budget 101. The longevity lines in the various departments, does that have a uniform definition of what that means throughout the departments?
The longevity, yes. For everything is pretty much mirrored off of union agreements.
Okay.
So the longevity kicks in, the first level of longevity kicks in when you've attained 5 years of service. And then the hierarchy kicks up after 10 years and after 15 years.
Okay. So it mirrors the union agreements.
Excuse me?
It mirrors the union agreements
Yeah.
essentially. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Let's see. Parks maintenance workers. The $128,000 consists of one full-time employee who's currently on staff, one proposed new full-time employee, and one part-time employee who is retired, but who had come back last year to help Park and Rec, and who is also being considered to come back and help mentor, if you will, the two maintenance workers. So again, right now there's one full-time who's on staff. This budget is anticipating hiring another maintenance worker. Again, that's not a new employee or an additional employee. It's a replacement of an employee who left in 2021. Tools and equipment. That difference is for a sit-down mower. And Dan, you may or may not have had conversations with Dana. I don't know if you've come to grips with converting this estimate to an electric mower, which would be the estimate was 30,000. So I guess that's.
Which line is that?
That's the tools and equipment line, which moved from 1,400 last year to 16,500.
7110.23.
Line 512.
Oh, God.
You got it?
Yeah. I know Dana was going to go to Arrowway and get numbers. She got that?
I think she did, yeah.
And so that's in
I think
here
she,
or not?
I think she sent you an estimate. No, I think I think the number that she got for an electric was in the 30,000 range. So I guess we can, we can keep this open, but that's something to talk about. And there was again, because of the anticipated transition for the maintenance workers, hospital and medical is assumed to increase. again, that's going to be contingent upon the new employee. And just briefly, this is what I'm talking about. When you look at the day camp counselors, you see 100 and now 210. Obviously, that's again because Park and Rec is anticipating a full gamut of programs this year.
There will also be pressure on Park and Rec during the summer, during the summer season, on part-time and seasonal.
Yeah.
Because of a general raise in minimum wage, the increase in minimum wage, pushing up everything with it. Although they're not actually subject to minimum wage, the fact is it has a market effect on the market,
right,
raising the total market.
It phases, it's like multi-year. When does it phase in? I forget.
Say it again.
When did it's a step up on the minimum wage? I remember Cindy, right?
I don't know.
Finishes up in.
This is still be the last year, it's 5 years. It's up to $15 in 2022.
And then it flattens out, right?
As far as we know, it's
But this is still inside that
Yes.
period.
I don't think we know if it flattens out or not. It's just that's the end of the
yeah,
plan
end of the 5 years.
increases.
So now in the pool category, I'll just point out pool equipment. They want to purchase a new chemical control valves and a new vacuum for the pool, and that's why they're anticipating a $17,000 difference from budget to budget. Court repairs from 20,000 to 25 because they're anticipating power washing and painting the Fox Valley courts. Youth program. I should have pointed out that when we were talking about the replacement employee, where we dropped the number down from 85 to 51. In years past, that employee or the salary for that employee was categorized in the youth program category. We moved it to the administration category. That's why there's a zero here. It's not that the expense has evaporated. It's just been moved to another department. It's here. All right. The difference for vehicle lease from 6,000 to 23,000. This is a vehicle lease buyout. Vehicles are difficult to come by, apparently, and they like the current vehicle that they have. And so when the lease is up, they're going to pay the buyout price, and that's what the difference is. This $36,000 difference, LES gym, this was because of my error last year. I didn't include this line item in this report. So it's not that this is a new expense, it's just a new expense in this report. This would have been a similar expense last year.
And that's over and above the monthly for LES, or is that included?
Right,
within?
because we're also including here cleaning or incidental expenses above the $2,000 a month that we pay the school.
Okay. So the total figure that includes LES and the gym and I guess the police part as well?
This 36,000
okay,
is purely the gym.
just the gym part.
Just the gym.
The 2,000 base plus the cleaning.
Correct.
Okay.
How the rest of the rent expense for that we pay the school for the folks that are in LES,
right,
it's allocated by square footage. So for instance, the police department would have a piece of that rent expense allocated to them by the square footage that they use over there.
Well, I understand the plus with the LES gym, we have exclusive occupancy from, all hours during the lease term for that,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
for programming, yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
okay.
And again, because we moved the employee from one department to the other, the hospital and medical benefits and welfare benefits do not appear in this department. That's now 7620. Just to point out, the community enrichment is the New Neighbor Network program. Transportation. And again, the difference from one budget to the next is simply that Park and Rec anticipates running all of their programs. This is the effect of Cindy's presentation at the last board meeting. So we injected the additional expense here, and that's why it's in the adjustment column.
The 12,400 increase. Okay.
The 12,400.
Did you get a cheer from the trustees, Sam?
We'll wait until this budget's finalized.
Okay.
That's a good way of thinking there, Cindy. The difference here in celebrations is really, again, because Park and Rec believes that they'll be running the fireworks show. I'll just point out that their expenses here are estimated, in addition to the 6,000 for staff, they're adding another 30,000 for the fireworks show itself. They're only anticipating, or our budget only includes $15,000 of donations. So there is a negative impact to the budget regarding the fireworks. That's within this budget. Whether or not it becomes actuality, I don't, that's another story. Nothing really to talk about here. And here, Rich, is what I was pointing out, that the other half of the Kellett Sessions retainer is appearing on line 761, 57.5. And again, what we decided to do at our last meeting was to remove any of the anticipated expense for the planning board, the master plan consultant. So that's what this number represents, the decrease of 159.5.
And to take it directly out of the proceeds of the sale of.
Right, we adjusted last, we made the adjustment last time, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. 8810, and for the cemetery expense, this line item here, $5,000, is for the Salt Dome separation project, where they're anticipating to build a burn to separate it in some fashion.
Were there trees?
Trees and, yeah.
And opposite of the police budget, where we showed a slight increase in their retirement expense, there is a large decrease for this year's retirement expense for the rest of the employees. This has to do with the positive results that New York State's retirement fund has enjoyed over the last year. And so the state controller decreased the amount of expenses charged to all of the municipalities. Unemployment expense, I anticipated, or we put into the budget last year $5,000, because we were getting hit with a lot of unemployment claims, which we didn't anticipate in 2020. So we put in some number in 2021, but those, again, it was the unemployment claims were really due to COVID knocking our programs out. So the majority of those unemployment claims came from Park and Rec seasonal folks. There's an increase in the hospital medical benefits for retirees line because there's 2 additional retirees in this line from last year's budget. And here's a big number to the plus side. A big change in the debt service expense. The 2006 open space and pool issuance matured in 2021. So that expenditure no longer shows up in 2022's budget.
Great job. Great job, you guys.
And there, but we have put on bans, and some of those bans kicked in to pay principal as well as interest. And so at next meeting, if it's all right with the board, I'll talk more in depthly regarding our bond portfolio. But
Okay, that would be stupendous.
try to make that exciting.
I got a little preview, so I'm very excited.
Yes, you did. So the gains that we made by the maturing bond were offset somewhat by the additional expense on the band side. So here's a summation of the categories of what makes up the budget. Again, salaries and wages are pretty much, an increase in salaries and wages are pretty much increased by the additional salaries from Park and Rec, from police and maintenance. The increase in equipment is pretty much those increases that we spoke about from the Park and Rec side. And contractual, a big portion of this change is what was put into the fund rebuild line, which we'll talk about in executive session. The change in benefits is pretty much for the increased amount of medical for the new employees or for the employees that transition from individual to family. And then the decrease in debt service was we just covered. Any questions, or do you want to go back to any line items? Then we'll just hit the highway revenue line. So this is where I can start injecting, if you want, what I grasped from Chris's numbers. If I heard right, there were 3 pieces that could be added in here: 30,200, 43,176, and 53,307. Did you guys write it down?
Yes.
Yeah, but I wasn't sure
So the chips was
of what it was
So
at the end.
The chips
Okay.
was 220,
Two-
220,002 cents.
Right.
And then paved New York was $53,370.40. And I didn't catch what the middle one was, which was $43,175.65. But total, it was $316,000.43.
So I can either put it in now on the revenue side as well as the expense side, or because it's, you're grossing up both sides of the equation, which has no impact to the bottom line. But what it does do, it gives a better idea as to how much road work can be done on the expense
Right.
side. So there is a benefit for putting the numbers in, even though we may or may not have them exactly right. I guess we can get that from Chris. So
Yeah, it could wait for the preliminary budget, though.
it could.
Yeah,
Yeah, it could wait for the next stage.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
good to
then we'll-
have some changes,
Chris sent some communication around outlining numbers.
Not as far as I know
No, he
on,
said he was going
said he
to
was gonna
follow up.
because he only got those today.
Okay, I thought there was something.
That's why he
So
was.
so
okay.
Chris did send us his update. So the bullets
Yes.
he went through were
Yeah,
given to us, but those three numbers were new because he had just gotten them
Okay,
today.
those were
Yeah.
in the initial, okay.
And other than Chips and Pave New York, I can't remember the name of the other program, but I wrote them down.
Probably something to do with cold weather.
Yes.
So Pete, then is it okay with you if we don't put the numbers in until
Yeah.
later
The,
on?
We'll do it for preliminary.
Okay.
Well, the number you have
Hello.
now is what?
One of
We
the
have-
interesting.
170 for chips. That's what we
Winter
have now
recovery
in the
apportionment.
budget.
Yes,
So we
winter
can-
recovery apportionment.
So we know we can,
Exactly.
so we know
How did you
conservatively we
remember
can
that?
increase
He
that
wrote it
by
down.
80 and then we see what that last piece is, right? Because we have the two, if we have the 170, so we know we have the 253 plus. So if we adjusted that to the 250, we know then we can adjust it again, right?
So the 170, the Chips is now going to be 220.
Correct.
Right. so the
0.02.
The two you were mentioning, the chips
And the
plus
weather,
the pave.
cold
New York,
weather.
New York.
So those are 250, so 253 or so. So if we adjusted the 170 up to the 250, right, we can do that now, can't we?
Okay.
Yeah, you could.
Yes.
But it all goes straight on the other,
Right, on the other side.
on the
The
other side
expense
as
side.
well, on the other.
We're
Now,
going to use it all.
the interesting thing is how much that might allow us to increase our paving budget next
That's
year.
right.
Yes.
Right.
So do you want me to put in the,
Eventually, yes, I want to put in a significant increase in his paving budget.
so
Okay, do you want to put in the numbers now? Is that what you're saying, Leo?
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Do we want to
Okay.
wait for the preliminary budget to have these numbers put in?
We might as well do it now.
Okay.
Okay, so then what I heard three numbers.
Yeah.
So the
I
total,
heard
are we
the
looking
two,
for chips or for the total that will be applied to paving?
The
I
total
think it
that will
all
be
deals
applied to
with-
Paving from the state.
Okay,
Right.
it's
and I think
316.
all three of those items were on the reimbursable
Yes.
nature, right?
Yeah,
We would have to expend
Right.
Correct.
to get the money back.
Yep.
But the number is 316, 483.07.
and
Okay,
then what the real decision is how much we leave in the road repair line,
As opposed to paving?
in the paving line, sorry.
Okay.
Road repair means potholes?
He meant paving.
I
No, but
meant
the road
paving,
repair you said. too, so.
so you think the number is higher than 296, 683?
It is 316. I mean, I'll do it again.
What is
but-
that adjustment, Leo, so I could plug it in here?
I put in three numbers. Well, the adjustment is 100, that I have is 126, 683. And that was the,
Rollover bits and pieces.
that was the three numbers that I heard
That
of
they talked about.
30, bringing the original number of 170 up to 200,200, which would be an adjustment of 30,200. And then I heard 43,176, and then I heard 53,307.
I don't think there's any rush. Why don't we just wait for the email and
Okay,
confirm? and-
I don't mind. It's not the end of the world.
Great. So
Let's
it
wait.
comes full circle. So we will
Yeah.
go ahead and save these
For-
numbers for the
for-
preliminary budget after we've gotten confirmation from our Assemblyman Chris Burdick. How does that
That's-
sound?
That sounds great.
Oh, good.
All right.
Highway fund. Not so quickly.
Everyone's trying to wrap you up.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much, Leo.
So again. So the
Take your time.
I will. We can wrap up. I just wanted to, again, just to reiterate that the main differences in the highway fund was the reintroduction of the $180,000 for paving and the increased expense for the mulch and debris. So here's the 180 and here's the mulch and debris increase. On the debt side, there wasn't much of a change for the highway fund this year. But next year, there will be, or in next year's budget, there will be, because the issuance that took place in 2008 was for road resurfacing, and that bond matures in 2022. And that has a
Gosh,
debt
we're
service.
finally rid of that. bond.
Correct. And that has a debt service in 2022 of 291,000. So 2023's budget for highway will be benefited by the maturity of that bond. Now, there could, as you see here, band principal increased this year. And there's probably going to be further increases next year. But when we talk about the bond portfolio, we can talk about strategy. But there's another thing that I remember Dan saying a year or so ago when we talked about the maturity of the bonds. He said, "Oh, fine. Who's ever in
Yes.
power then is going to look like a genius."
That's right.
So, you guys are in power.
Well, yeah, I know.
So that's it.
We're
Jen,
geniuses.
were you in?
Thank you, Leo.
You were on
You're
this
welcome.
board when we borrowed that.
Yeah. So, since nobody asked, I had 2 comments on this budget that I'm very happy with. Actually, 3. One is that I'm very happy with it, and I want to be really clear that this, in the tentative budget stage, which is the second stage, we are under the tax cap.
Correct.
So we anticipate being under the tax cap this year, because we already are. Fantastic. The second is that I want to talk about Dana's request for that assistant superintendent, and that I support that request. And she has offered to up her revenue in order to hire a substantial employee who can hit the ground running for several reasons, because of the retirements coming up and also because of the increased workload on Dana. And so I wanted to bring that up, that I would love to see that in a preliminary version of the budget where we can offer her that. And then I also want to talk about a raise for the Department of Finance. The Department of Finance hasn't had a raise in a long time. The Department of Finance never asks for a raise. And so I am going to make it my duty to ask for a raise for the Department of Finance.
What do you, nice favor are you going to ask for the Department of Finance?
Never. I am, it is all in goodwill, because I believe that they are valuable employees who work hard and don't ask for much. And so I'm asking for it. I'm asking for us to consider it, please.
Well, my cadre of underlings will appreciate it.
All your minions.
That's right, all my minions.
Just to clarify on.
Shall we send out a search party to see if we can find anyone?
Find some minions.
On the Parks and Rec request, it's not an assistant position, right? It's an upgrade of an existing position.
So Reed left and she
Right.
was like a rec leader, and Dana wants an assistant superintendent. And what we've come up with is something in between, which is more experienced than the rec leader position, but not quite the assistant superintendent that Dana wants. And so and Dana let us know that. And so I'm simply advocating for, I think we can do that for her, especially because she offered to up her revenue. And I think that there's real possibility that the playground committee raised $100,000 in about 4 months. I really believe that that's an indication that Dana could do that if she's so motivated to do so.
Demand for different programs, I think, so.
And she's an appreciative person. And
And that
I
would
know
help
she's
her.
always doing
Yeah.
her best, but I do think she'll be extra motivated if we give her the support that she needs.
And
That's
that would
all.
help her with all the pile of to-dos that she has on her desk for RFPs and things like that haven't gone out yet.
I mean, when she says she may find some more revenue, does that mean in the budget now?
She's
or-
willing to up her revenue $35,000.
Now, haven't
That's a
we already
no-brainer.
done some revenue raise?
We did to 1.1 million.
We
We had
increased
talked
it
about
100,000.
raising it to 1.25. So there is wiggle room there. And if
Okay,
Dana's motivated, I can't imagine not taking her up on that, because
okay, I just had thought that we'd
morale
already
kind of goes
done that, and I
down when
didn't
somebody
think-
says, I think I can do this and I really need it and I want it. And I've been here for 22
Right.
years and I have so much support in the community. I think it does something to your morale if
Okay,
the town says.
I'm just
no.
saying that I don't want us to have already put it in and then to put it in again.
No.
Well, we would put
it's
in
not.
more,
We have
yeah.
not.
We have not put it in.
Okay,
All right, so I support that as well. I hope someone can consult with her and come up with the numbers for it.
So do we put that in now? Leo?
I'm not
Would
sure
we
exactly.
Put that in now, or do we wait?
Why don't we wait for the preliminary and we can put in the CHIPS numbers,
I've
we can
got-
talk to Dana
I've
and we
got
can put
one
it.
question I'd like to talk to Dana about, which is very personnel. It's management of people.
Mhm. What do you want to talk to her about management of people? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
about one issue on management of people.
Great.
Remember, we've got existing staff.
I'm aware.
And you want to look at the impact on the existing staff.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
So just I guess to go over your timing.
Yeah, I have to have this on the lady on your right's desk. Technically by Friday, but according to Greg, I've got an extension until Monday morning.
For what, for the budget?
Yes.
For the tentative?
Right.
For filing with the town clerk?
Yeah.
Right, that's
Filing with the
that's a requirement, a budget requirement.
So Saturday carries over to the Monday. Yeah.
Right. And
right.
then subsequent to that, then in theory, you're working on the preliminary budget stage.
Great.
And the preliminary budget, you need to have a public hearing by December 10th for Westchester County law.
Okay.
So that's what you gotta,
Work with, that's the
Hearing
time.
the final adoption by December.
the 20th,
Yeah.
December 20th.
Leo, can we go back to the line item? It's not number 406, line 406 in the spreadsheet under general fund. That's the code enforcement officer. Can you explain that adjustment again?
Sure. Last year, the budget included $25,000 in expense,
Mhm.
which the thought was that the current staff would be working as part of the time as code enforcement
Right,
officer,
putting in the hours.
putting in the
Right.
hours to do the work.
Right.
We also increased the revenue side by $25,000 because the thought was that having this code enforcement work,
Mhm.
it would generate code enforcement penalty fees. And the thought was that it would pay for itself.
Right.
So that's what the budget was set up to do last year. The employee did not utilize that expense in the budget. So therefore, that expense was a savings, but on the other side, there was no fee generated as well. So net, there was no real impact to the budget.
Right.
This year, the request was made for a full-time code enforcement officer
Mhm.
at a salary level of $75,000. The decision was made subsequent to the last board meeting to remove the full-time code enforcement officer.
Mhm.
And the thought was to leave it as it was last year, with the hope that the current staff
Right.
would utilize it. And on the other side, the revenue last year, the 25 grand in last year's budget flowed through in this year's budget.
Mhm.
So again, there's no impact one way or the other by having the 25 grand on the expense side and the 25 grand on the revenue side.
Right, so the hope is that the 25 grand will be utilized for code enforcement, whereas this year was not.
Correct.
Thanks, Leo.
Sure.
Oh,
That it?
You may be excused.
all right. Thank you, Leo.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Leo.
I'd,
Thanks, Leo.
I'd like to propose. Where are we? Yes.
Public comment.
Oh, I'd like to open the meeting to public comment. Does anybody wish to comment? Can you look on?
Carol's
Carol.
our next.
It's just one person. Thank you, Sean. Carol Cernak.
Thank you. So, bit of a full circle here that I want to go through. I recently was going through my files at Farview Farm. By the way, I'm Carol Cernak from South Salem. And in that file, I came across a correspondence from Alvin Jordan, dated 1974, where he's graciously accepting the Wallace property of 4.25 acres, assuring that they will carefully protect the Wallace property and preserve it in its natural state, as set forth by the requirements of the Nature Conservancy. So the Nature Conservancy retains conservatorship. Then in March of 2002, I come across a piece of correspondence from the DEC to the town supervisor. And I don't recall, it was 2002, so I don't recall, where the DEC is telling the town that the salt storage facility maintenance plan, which provides specific measures to address the potential for chloride discharge to the waters of New York State, that plan must address the continued discharge of chloride contaminated stormwater from the facility's stormwater collection tank, either willfully or unwillfully, which means that it should be pumped on a regular basis. It's a 5,000 gallon holding tank. Also written in the documentation that the water line servicing homes affected by the previous contamination has been completed. Previous contamination contaminated all the houses going down from the salt dump facility down to Gossett's. They all had to be connected into new water systems. If they did not comply with that, they were going to be fined $25,000 a day per violation. So I have no record of that being remediated. So that brings me then to in March of 2002, I took a water sample out of the holding tank, which tested it for sodium chloride, came back at 40,300 milligrams per liter.
You said March of 2002?
Yes.
19 years ago?
Yes. There's no recommendation for the sodium quantity because it's not potable water. However, it was highly contaminated because it had never been pumped out. When it did get pumped out, unfortunately, the town pumped it out with their pumper truck and disposed of it on dirt roads. DEC once again said that that's not a doable situation and that tank has to be maintained. Brings me to a FOIL request that I did a couple weeks ago regarding when the last time the holding tank has been pumped. As per Janet that I confirmed today, Peter Rippinger told her that it has not been in use for 18 years, which I don't understand. The tank is there and the tank is full. So how is that not being in use? Why isn't it being pumped? Why isn't it being maintained? The wetlands, and by the way, I'm going to go over my time because I have a couple maps to show you. Not as exciting as the last ones, but here is the nature preserve. Here's Route 35. Here's the salt dome. The holding tank is right there, right on the property line to the wetlands, to the nature preserve. And then this other map I came across, state wetlands. This was the one that I recently had, nature preserve, Route 35, salt dome facility. This is the state wetlands. Then over the weekend, I had not much to do, so I went again and I did some more research. Here I find another wetlands map, updated, nature preserve, Route 35, salt dome. The wetlands is extending into the salt dome property. So, you know, I don't want to be the person who brings sour grapes to the town all the time, but please come into compliance. I know it's only 4.25 acres that the Wallaces gave to the town, but today's value, that would be worth a lot of money. It was worth, and the town originally wanted to buy it from Mrs. Wallace. She generously donated it to the town with the deed restrictions to make sure the town did the right thing as far as the salt that was already in place and already contaminating. So please, can we finally get this cleared up? And this brings me back to Hickory Homes. You know, it's a worse situation than it's ever has been. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you. Next, I'm asking Jeremy Zittimer to unmute. Jeremy, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Janet, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, it's Jeremy Zittimer from Golden's Bridge. I wanted to take a moment and offer some thanks to the board. The first is for the continued upholding of the mask mandate, which I think has been really, really successful. I'm under no objection to removing it at this point because I think it's been really, really wonderful and has brought cases down to a reasonable level where the mask mandate is no longer needed. We can just rely on individual residents to wear their own masks. But I just wanted to say how grateful I am for this. A couple of folks in town know that I have an immunocompromised family member who I love a lot. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get emotional. We joke that he loves to spend all of his spare time at the Acme in Golden's Bridge, and we were really scared that something so like court is everyday life would become a really dangerous activity for him. And I really appreciate that the town board through their action has made everyday life safer for him through this mask mandate. So I just wanted to thank you for your really wonderful success on that. And the second is that I wanted to extend a thank you to Councilwoman Jane Crimmins. I really appreciate a lot of the things that you do for this town, but in particular, I wanted to offer a thank you for the work that you've done on the ADA trail, which I don't really think I've spoken much about, but there's someone in my family who has become disabled in the last 2 months and is a really big nature lover. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity to walk with him on that nature trail. So I just wanted to let you know that this work that you're doing really, really matters, and I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry to everybody for getting emotional on the call, but I'm really, really grateful. So thank you. That's it. That's all my time.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy. Next, I'm asking Elio Moschetta to unmute.
Can you hear me, Janet?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Elio Machado, South Salem. As some know, and probably most don't know, we are without a school resource officer on the John Jay campus. Here are some thoughts about the safety and security of our John Jay students, the teaching staff, other employees, and all who pass through the halls of the school. There is little doubt that everyone involved wants a safe and secure teaching environment. The difficult part is how to accomplish the task. What occurred in Sandy Hook, just about 17 miles away, back in 2012, as other incidents in schools across the country, was a game changer. The best way to prevent crime is by having a sworn, uniformed police officer present. In the event of an incident, that officer can immediately radio for assistance, where other officers as well as state troopers can respond. Today, because of the aforementioned school shootings, police departments are trained to quickly respond and handle the situation in order to preserve lives. There is nothing better than having a Lewisboro police officer assigned to the school. Of course, this is easier said than done. Who will pay for it? I feel strongly that the school district should pick up the cost. I have several reasons as well as questions. Just doing a quick search online, I found that New York is attempting to establish a Guardians for School license plate program with the revenues going into a Guardians for Schools fund that would help pay for school resource officers. Perhaps there are ways through grants to help offset the cost. In addition, I will put my money where my mouth is by knowing at some point the cost could be part of my school taxes. The bottom line for me is what price can we put on one or several lives? Another thought is the greeters throughout the rest of the schools in the district could establish a rapport with and a direct line of communication with the SRO. Any suspicious incidents can be reported directly to the SRO. Our police department should be left with the task at hand, policing the town, with new mandates such as body cameras, which are not simply strapping a camera onto an officer, but rather other logistics involved. It has to be difficult for our police department to do it all with their limited budget. Also, as an aspect of police reform is for our officers to be involved with the community. What better way to accomplish this? I believe the school resource officer present is necessary for all. One officer who has the responsibility and develops the expertise in working with school staff and students and maintaining a safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thanks, Elio. I'm asking now Barbara Mangione to unmute.
How is that, Janet?
That's great, Barbara.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I just want to express my thanks to the board regarding the budget. I often like to say BC before I had children. Many years ago, I used to be an operating room administrator in charge of material management and inventory control, involved in multi-million-dollar budgets. So I know how hard it is to take into account all the different departments and their needs, especially in this environment where everything is changing on a daily basis. So thank you for a responsible budget. I also just want to say thank you to that woman who spoke earlier, Nicole Zenner. I believe she said she was new to the area. It's really hard for people to come to a meeting, especially if they're relatively new to a town, and express some concern. And I don't know anything about the HOAs over there on Boulder Lane, but I do remember that fire back in last year. And I know there was a major issue with getting the fire trucks through the area, which became a true safety issue because of the seriousness of the fire. So I thank her for bringing that up. And I think sometimes perhaps maybe the board, and I'm not necessarily saying this as a blame thing, but I think sometimes it may be a good thing for you to go back and listen to what your responses sometimes sound like when somebody's bringing up an issue. Because what I heard was her being very concerned about something, not maybe having all the intricacies of what goes into the parking in that area, and pretty much being rebuffed, immediately, saying we can't do anything about that. Again, I'm not meaning to criticize, but sometimes it's good to go back and listen to how you responded to someone in the community who brought up a concern, especially if they're new to the area. And also, I just want to voice my support for Jody, Jonathan, because that group is really doing their very best to create something nice in an area which has pretty much been vacant for years, and putting in the sweat equity and some dollars. And I do think they deserve a little support from the town on that. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Now I'm asking Kimberly Morello to unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me turn this down. I'm a new resident in Golden's Bridge, and I guess have a inquiry of oversight on permits that are given to town activities or activities in the town. What office does that?
Parks and Rec.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to congratulate Jeremy's still on the line, and I don't know if this is out of order, but they had a wonderful event this weekend, a festival of our future, which was kind of a unity event. I would just hope that, and they had terrific groups with tables on very, very important issues that I think we in this town could look a little closer at, having some organizations within the town, like Apex and seniors programs with young people. But I guess the one thing I did want to bring up, everybody wants a unified community. I just found that it turned out to be, as much as everybody talked about it not being political, it was one political speech after another. And then one political group was invited to have a table there with all sorts of paraphernalia and lawn signs, and the other party in town wouldn't even know about it. And I would just hope, in the sake of unity, that next year everybody gets invited and everybody gets to be part of the community, because if we're divided, we're going to fall. So we need to bring everyone together truthfully. And thank you for my time.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly. And that's it.
Thank you. I would like to move on to approval of claims. I'd like to propose that we approve claims as presented. I think you've also all got Leo's note on the major items. 351,000 for paving Salem Hill, Oskalita, and post office. That's all CHIPS money, which will be refunded. Kitchewan Lake Engineering Study, 78,000, and Truesdale Engineering Study, 40,000, both sums of which will be refunded by the City of New York or their DEP department. Then we've got payment for the pond trail at the town park of 63,000 and payment of medical insurance of 137,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I would like to poll the board. Janet, Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane, and
You sure?
I am sure that I am Jane. And we had a new neighbor network event at Fox Valley yesterday that was fairly well attended. It was really nice to meet the new neighbors and welcome them. And I got an email address from a new resident whose first name is Anna. And then I accidentally deleted it from my notes, and I had promised to connect this individual with Christine Chopin, actually, because she and her partner are interested in biking. So I'm desperately looking for your email address in our records. We can't find it so far. So if you're watching, or anybody who knows Anna is watching, please be in touch with me.
Is Anna my fellow countryman?
Yes, no, different person. Yeah.
Does Parks and Rec have her registration info?
That's who I went to first, and not yet, but
Okay.
I've only been to Michael so far.
Okay.
So there's still digging to do there, but I thought,
Okay.
just in case.
Mhm.
So Halloween is coming up this weekend, and I wish everybody a happy and safe one. Some of the events going on, the Lewisboro Land Trust on Halloween at 10 to 11:30 a.m. is having a costume hike at the Leon Levy Preserve. And I feel like there's another Halloween event that I want. Oh, the Trunk or Treat, hosted by our own Department of Parks and Recreation, is happening on Saturday from 12 to 4 p.m. at the town park. It was very successful last year. Last year was a COVID year, so people were finding alternatives to trick or treating. So we'll see how this year goes, but lots of town community organizations will be there. So please do come on by. Election day is next Tuesday, November 2nd. Early voting has already started, so please do your civic duty and vote. I wanted to also mention a Festival for Our Future, which was, I wanted to thank Jeremy Zittimer and Cynthia Ryan for putting in a lot of the organizational effort. It brought a lot of new community organizations to town, and that was nice. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to continue that or encourage those same organizations to maybe come to the Lewisboro Library Fair, so that we can kind of fold it in. I have to mention the Oktoberfest event that the Lewisboro Playground Committee put on October 16th. It was just impressively successful. People were having so much fun. It was lively. There was cornhole going on and food and some music and the playground. And it was really just so enjoyable. And then, There is a Buddies United program going on this weekend from 2 to 3 p.m. at Increase Miller. So this is a program that is for any Increase Miller child. And it started out as a KL SEPTO, a special ed program, and it was pairing interested high school students with our younger children so that they could play together on the playground. And the high school students, they're phenomenal. And actually, the program has been opened up to any Increase Miller child or their family for the purpose of inclusion. So that is something you're interested in. Please email info@klsepto.com. And the last thing I wanted to say is that I came across an article entitled "How Can Parks Better Serve Autistic Travelers?" And it was talking about how parks and preserves can be certified. There's a certification process in the works as autism friendly. And some of the things that they're going to be looking for is that 80% of the park staff has completed a training, that you have a designated low sensory area. And I think that we have both the will of our Parks Department to go ahead and do training, and with the trail at the town park, that will be a low sensory area we could designate. So I think that could possibly be a very exciting thing for the town to do. And just by way of a statistic, 87% of autistic families never go on vacation. And because there aren't appropriate places for them to go, and it's not a vacation. And so by getting certified as autism friendly, you're signaling to the community and to surrounding communities, come here. And we talk about, a marketing plan to bring people to Lewisboro. I think these are some of the things that we can count on to help us do that. So I thought that was really interesting and I wanted to share. And that's it for me.
Rich.
Just want to thank Assemblyman Chris Burdick for his presentation and all the great work he's done on behalf of our community. And also want to do, I was there with Jane for the new resident get together, which was nice to see new people who I've seen it also. A couple of the couples, I've already seen them at a couple of events. So it's nice to see new residents feeling welcome into our community, which is great. And just echoing other members here, Oktoberfest was terrific. It was a terrific event, and everyone who organized that. And I want to give a shout out to Captain Lawrence, who donated the libations, which I was pleased to help serve. And my shoes dried out several days later, so it was a great time. Thanks.
Dan.
Yeah, just ditto on Oktoberfest and the event this past weekend, just amazing. I voted, so I just remind everybody that
They didn't give you a label.
That I've got it somewhere. It's on, on another article of clothing. But anybody can go over to Poundridge Town Hall, and it looks like just basically every day up through Halloween. It's kind of daytime hours for the most part.
Somers Townhouse as well, I believe.
Oh, Somers also, so that's probably more convenient for folks.
The Elephant?
Goldsbridge.
Yeah.
So that's an opportunity to get that out of the way. And it doesn't matter what party you're in. It could be the rent's too damn high party, whatever, but get over there and vote. And just one more thing, I'd mentioned that I wanted to propose a policy which would have us opting for the energy efficient options in purchasing when there's a better return, and the return basically beats our cost of money. And I've got a draft that I put in front of the Sustainability Committee, and they're commenting. So I'll try to have that for our next session, just to introduce it for people to take a look at.
Tony.
So I'd like to thank Chris Burdick again. He's been an ally of ours, very helpful, very responsive, always available. The other assemblyman I'd like to thank is Steve Otis for hosting a New York State Clean Water Infrastructure Grant workshop last week that Peter and I attended, where they had folks representing New York State Environmental Finance Corp, or EFC. Those are the folks that are providing the grants that we are tapping into. And so it was a very informative workshop. So I'd like to thank Steve Otis again for that. Yeah, Oktoberfest was fantastic. It was great. Lots of people. Atmosphere was tremendous. Yes, and the Lions Club actually ran out of food and I had to make a second food run for burgers and dogs. But it was a great event. And before that, we had a car show. So it was our first Cars in the Park car show, which we had about 40 cars. So it was really, really nice. And thanks everyone who made that happen.
And thanks for letting me drive one of the Gonsalves vehicles.
All right. I'd like to echo that. Although I didn't spill any beer on my shoes, it was too damn valuable to spill it. There was a better place to pour it than on my shoes. The next town board meeting will be Monday, November the 8th at 7:30 at the Lewisboro Library. This will be followed by a town work session on Monday, November the 15th at 7:30 via Zoom. It's a single subject meeting regarding engineering studies of Lake Kitchewan, Truesdale, and Walkabuck. As you may know, we have been spending quite a lot of New York City's money on these studies, and it's about time they reported back to us.
So
And that's what they will be doing.
I want to let you know up front that I have a conflict with that date, but I feel well briefed in the subject and I'll watch the recording.
Okay. Thanks. We had to find a day.
That's fine. No, I'm not upset about it. I just want to let you know.
In addition to the regular town board.
That's
meetings.
right. And then there's
Yes.
another one. So I had scheduled something in between the
Yeah.
two and
Right.
it's fine. It happens. You'll have a quorum, but I wanted to be upfront.
I didn't want to it'd be very difficult to tack what could be a 3-hour meeting onto a town board meeting. Well, it wouldn't be difficult. I mean, we'd just be
I
here
mean,
till 1 or 2 in the
Compared
morning.
to surrounding municipalities, I'm very curious about length of meeting. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I feel like our meetings are extraordinarily long.
Well,
I will be honest.
maybe, what's your suggestion? Every week?
No, my
that
suggestion
would
would
be
be
a
to
way of
consult with other
reducing the length.
municipalities to see how it is that they are able to keep their meetings much briefer than ours.
Okay. That quite honestly is it. I'd like a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel appointment.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.